Maxie, I really want to see you. I really want to hear you. I really want to understand what you're saying. This is why that whole line in oh God, what is it? Avatar is like whenever all over the world. I see you. That's why that landed. Because nobody before ever fucking said that. Because we
Yeah.
all want to be seen. Your father wants to be seen, he wants to be heard, and he wants to be understood.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Going Out Looking In, the podcast about the big questions of life, personal growth, and spirituality. My name's Maxi, I'm your host, and first of all, I want to say thank you. Thank you to all of you who have been listening and watching over the last couple of episodes. I'm seeing a big increase in subscribers and viewers and listeners across all platforms, and that obviously means a lot. I started, going out with this podcast with my little mobile recorder that's laying right here into nature, and basically, started to record my thoughts around, those big questions of life and stuff. And that now I'm having, a bunch of people reaching out to me and listening to every episode is so awesome and moving. It really is significant to me, and I want to say thank you once again. Yeah. Also, if you haven't yet, subscribed or followed the podcast yet, please consider doing so, because this helps us tremendously. Really, it pushes the channel and it elevates, everything that we are doing here, and is also basically helping us to attract even bigger guests in the future. So, those 10 seconds of just like rating and following the podcast, please consider doing so. All right, so now we are going deep. Let's take a deep breath together. Just to arrive and take a moment, because we delve deep into this episode. I talked to Vince Matoska Chafin. Vince is a men's work facilitator for more than 25 years. His work took him around the globe, helping hundreds, if not thousands, of individuals on their personal journey to healing from trauma and ancestral wounds. I discovered Vince through his work at Sacred Sons. Shout out to Sacred Sons. And I was basically, struck by his presence, his gracious spirit, and his really life-spanning wisdom that his aura and his being emanates. It's really captivating, and you will see in this conversation what I mean by that. And it's also a very vulnerable episode, because we are really going deep into my very own, very personal shadow, into my father wound, into my ancestral history and trauma. And we look at it, and to do that with Vince on tape, on this recorded conversation is a little bit scary, and to share that, but at the same time, I'm proud of it. I'm proud of this one, and I can't wait for you guys to listen to it. So basically, we touched on a broad variety of topics. Big one is gratitude. We talked about the importance and the significance of gratitude, of freedom and responsibility. What does that even mean? Why is it so important that we take responsibility for everything that we are doing in life? We looked at shadow work, ancestral trauma, family constellation work, and intention and impact. So all of this wrapped in one conversation, as I was telling you, yep. And it's also the longest episode I've done so far. So get ready, buckle up for Vince Matoska Chafin. So, with the intro, I was introduced to you by Sacred Sons and by the podcast episode you did with Adam. And basically, just because it was literally the first episode of the many that are online from Sacred Sons, I intuitively clicked on the one with you. And I really love the first question that Adam asked you. So I want to ask that again also for this sort of just to get going. So on this beautiful day, what's most alive within you?
Well, top line always is gratitude, man. I woke up this morning and so for sure, gratitude. Um, I, as I mentioned in that podcast and what comes to mind now, I have lots of friends and family and loved ones who aren't here. And so the fact that I'm here, I woke up, things are working, my hands work, my eyes work, my ears work, my body works. Um, huge gratitude. Um, Also aware of planning and power. I live off grid. I live in the woods, and it's not as rustic as one might think. I have two houses here on a couple of acres in the woods, um, and to do that, even though that's a what would one say an idyllic lifestyle, and it certainly is, and I enjoy it, and I love it, and I love how I live and where I live. Um, but I use solar and I have wind, and I also have to have gasoline, propane, and wood. So multiple power sources to keep this whole thing going. And um, my it's an interesting metaphor. My solar system has got some stuff that's got to be replaced, so it's not holding as much energy as it used to. Kind of like me getting older. It's not holding as much energy as it used to. So there's got maintenance that has to be done. And in fact, getting ready for this morning, I had to put on a backup generator, and I didn't do that initially. And I thought, oh my God, what if the power goes out during this conversation? I can't have that. So I rushed out there and I got the backup. One of my generators wouldn't start, so I had to go get another generator to start. So there was like all this logistical stuff to get done to make sure that I had enough juice to get through this call. And as soon as the sun comes up, I'm going to be fine. So I'm aware of what it takes to keep me going physically, mentally, emotionally, and the maintenance thereof, what it takes to keep us all going. And that it's not just one thing, it's multiple things. I've got, for me to get by up here, I got to have wind, and I got to have wood, and I got to have solar, and I got to have gasoline, and I got to have propane, and all of those in various combinations keep this whole thing going. So what is that a metaphor for? I've got, for me personally, I have to have my solo time, my regenerative time for my mind, my body, my spirit. I have to have community. I have to engage and take care of those relationships, or those relationships won't start. And I've got to be the one to do that maintenance. I often I notice that in some of my friendships, I'm the one that does most of the reaching out. And I couldn't make that mean something about them or me, right? And sometimes I do.
Mm.
Why am I the one always having to, like,
Yeah.
I'm always the one calling? I notice I'm the one that's always calling. But if that relationship's important to me, if that relationship's critical to me in my life and it feeds my soul, hey, they're just a busy person. And, I'm necessarily not necessarily a busy person. So, yeah, I'm going to be the one that calls and I'm not going to make that mean anything other than I love this person and it's my job to reach out. Um, so that's also reminded me of a couple of people I need to reach out to today to keep those relationships, keep that fire stoked. Just to my left of, just to the right of you off the screen here, I've got a wood stove that I had to stoke up this morning, and I got to cut all the wood for that. I got to go out in the field and I got to cut that wood and I got to load it, and then I got to split it, and then I got to stack it, and then I got to haul it from the stack and bring it in here and feed it into this fireplace. That's all keeping me warm. That's keeping my cats warm. That's keeping my guests warm that come in the spring and the fall. Um, that's all maintenance of the relationship.
Mm.
And so, what's alive? Maintenance of relationships. That's what's alive.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. How about
Wow.
for you? What's alive in you this morning?
Mm. Gratitude,
Yeah.
curiosity, and a little bit of self doubt. Yeah. As I as I'm navigating this new situation in my life,
Yeah.
with being self-employed, doing pouring my heart and soul into this podcast,
Yeah.
starting my business with a marketing agency that keeps me, keeps all of this here alive. Um, the sense of security from outside really started crumbling. That sort of infrastructure and that framework I was really getting back to. And so this security now has to really come from inside. And so I'm getting a lot out of those conversations, and by going out literally into nature. And I think that's maybe a nice segue into also what you said, because it really, like, I live semi rural, not like I'm still living out on the outskirts of Berlin. So it's, and I'm having like parks and stuff around me, but it's still like very well connected. And being like at the same time, I'm feeling hugely disconnected, especially when I'm hearing you talk, how reliant you are on connecting to the elements and to, Mother Earth, and to be in tune with its rhythm and timing and ups and downs. That is something that, I just purely from by how I'm living, I'm not able to do that in that degree. So I have to find ways in which I can substitute and which I can actively go out and really connect to this essence, So, for example, my girlfriend, she would just go cold plunging every day, even now, and it's like -2, -3 here right now. So she's been gradually, obviously, she started in summer when we moved here, and now she's just like been gradually always like every day going in. So it is. Yeah, it really reminded you when you were describing how you basically, that maintenance that you were talking about.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, it's it's a never-ending job, and as well as with the relationships, resonates deeply. I'm the same.
Mhm.
And when I was younger, I was looking at that, and I was then, it was ego coming up. It was my ego coming up saying, you can't be always the one reaching out. Like, this sort of maintenance needs to be, coming from both sides. But when I'm looking at the interaction I'm having with those people, there is no, it doesn't take anything away of the depth of the sincerity of those encounters by me being the one reaching out. It's just,
Mhm.
I am potentially maybe a little bit more extrovert, communicative, whatever. So,
Mhm.
um, guilt, also guilt, a little bit in
Mhm.
shame, and not
Mhm.
being worthy and stuff. It's just like, yeah, and that now looking back at it and hearing you talk, it's like, no, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay to initiate and really to, nurture those relationships by staying
Yeah.
in touch.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, for
now,
sure.
you know, I'm coming, like, I really feel I need to like, this gratitude is something that, and this sense for gratitude is something that, for me, I start naturally now to, I'm able to integrate this more and more, um, consciously and naturally, every day. It's more a feeling of not something I have to cognitively remind myself of, because I used to write
Mhm.
it down on my to-do list, and New Year's resolutions and stuff. It was like, you got to be more grateful.
Mhm.
So now I'm moving more in towards this sort of like, yeah, I am grateful. Like, I don't have to say it. I, I'm feeling that. So I was wondering,
Mhm.
how is it for you? Is that do you have a practice, a routine, something you do, to
Mhm.
remind you of that, or to feel that?
Mhm. Yeah. Um, for sure. Almost every morning. I start the day. If I don't write it down, I keep a journal next to my bed. And if I don't write it down when I start my day, literally before my feet hit the floor, when I wake up, I just do a quick body scan.
Mm.
And I start saying, wow, okay, my eyes are working. I'm grateful that my eyes are working today. And I wiggle my fingers. Wow, okay, my fingers are working. Awesome. I'm so grateful for that. My arms, my shoulders, I just start moving my body. And so before my feet hit the floor, I'm already done a complete body check. And I'm grateful for the fact that my body works today. There are people whose body does not work.
Mm.
Or, I could have had a stroke last night or a heart attack. And everything worked when I went to bed. But when I woke up in the morning, all of a sudden, half my body's not working or something's off. So the fact that I have the privilege, A, to be in a body, and two, that I got both legs that are working, so it's easy for me to get around. I was up running around just a few minutes before we started this podcast. My eyes work, my hands work, my legs worked. I was able to do all that. Holy crap. So first thing in the morning, for sure. If it's hard for a person to remember that, then absolutely keep a journal there. And you literally write 10 things down. What are you grateful for? I'm grateful. And it doesn't have to be, I start with my body and then work my way out. I work the thing closest to me, and then I start working in concentric circles on my way out. I'll say a little bit more about that in a second. But like for you, like if you have to keep a list
Mm.
and remind yourself, oh yeah, first thing I do in the mornings, gratitude practice. If that's part of your meditation or if that's part of your cold plunge, while you're getting in that water, you can say, your girlfriend can say, I am so grateful that I got two arms and two legs that get me in this water. I'm so grateful for cold water. I'm so grateful for how it makes me feel, even though everybody that I know that does it in the times that I do it hate it and don't want to do it. I'm so grateful for how I feel when I get out and how I feel the
Mm.
rest of the day when I do this thing, when I have the discipline to do the things that I don't want to do. I'm so grateful for my commitment to myself and my commitment to my well being. Like you
Mm.
can come up with a million things. Your gratitude list could be never ending. Like that thing goes on and on and on and on and on. It's really good to do it at the end of the day before you go to bed. Get out your journal. Write down the 10 or 20 or 30 things you're grateful for that happened that day before
Mm.
you go to sleep. So your mind's calm and you go to sleep. You lay down in a place of, okay, regardless of my situation, regardless of whatever's going on in my life, I, I'm here. I think I'm awake. I'm getting ready to go to sleep. I'm in a body and I have a place to sleep, whatever that is and wherever that is. Might not be the best situation, but hey, at least you got through the day. I got through today and maybe I'll get through tonight and maybe I'll have a good day tomorrow. I can be grateful for that. Like we can get down to the basic things. Did I eat today? Yeah.
Mm.
I'm grateful I had food today. Did I have shoes on me? Yeah, I had shoes. I had clothes. Like regardless of most of us live so much better than our parents and our grandparents and our great grandparents did. Without question.
Yeah.
Most of us not all did. Struggle through war, struggle through poverty, struggle to get food, struggle to get a job. Almost none of us have done that. So we have a lot to be grateful for. A lot. They
Mm.
sacrificed hugely for us to be able to do what we're doing right here, right now, and not have gunfire out there, and you and I not start our day looking for food, right? And waking up, God knows where we would have, if we would have been lucky to wake up cold, freezing ass cold, and then get up, and the first thing we do, look for food for ourselves, our family, our children, our loved ones. Neither one of us had to do that this morning. That's something to be, and we forget in modern day society just how little amount of time ago it was that our
Mm.
forefathers and foremothers, that was their day. Start early, work their ass off for very little money if they had a job, to then come home and provide, if they had a home, to provide for themselves. So I try to start at some of those really basic levels, man. So
Mm.
journal in the morning, journal in the evening, and anymore, like during the day, I might be sitting on my front porch or I might be doing a job, or even if I'm struggling with something. For me, my biggest process or growth in the gratitude thing is when I'm working on something and it isn't going well. It's not turning out the way I think it should or I wanted it to. Oftentimes working with mechanical things here on the ranch. In those moments, I need to be grateful. Hey,
Mm.
I got hands, I got tools, I got what I think I have what I need right here to work on this thing. And no, it's not going the way I want it to, but at least this is what I'm doing. And I'm not having to do something else. So all through the day, I know it changes my mindset, it changes my mind frame, it changes my connection to spirit, it changes my connection to myself and others. If I can be grateful and express that either inwardly or outwardly, it completely changes and recalibrates everything that's going on. It's the simplest and I think the most effective process that a human being can do. If you want to change your mind frame, if you want to change your state, take a moment and be grateful.
Mm.
Take a moment and be grateful. Get up, move your body, and then take a moment to be grateful. That'll shift everything.
Yeah.
Then you'll come at things with fresh eyes, fresh perspective, fresh attitude. And it's easy to be grateful when things are great, when things are easy and things are going great. You turn on the power and the lights came on and the refrigerator still works and girlfriend's still like, oh, hey, baby, I love you. It's a hard day to be grateful when girlfriend goes, you know what, I'm out. That's a hard time to find a place of gratitude when shit's not going the way you want it to go.
Hmm.
That's when these practices need to come to the fore. And yeah, we can certainly talk a little bit more about that for sure.
Yeah, it may sound trivial, it may sound simple, easy, but it's simple, but it's not easy. So I I I deeply resonate with that. My generation, I'm telling you, I've been so disassociated
Yeah,
from nature, from
yeah, yeah,
the simplest things, laying on grass, on Mother Earth. Like, it's really
yeah,
simple. It's simple stuff, man. It's walking barefoot on the on a like outside, just on the
yeah,
grass, and feel that.
yeah.
Um, it's and it's funny because really I listen to your conversation with Adam, and I listened to it multiple times now. One time was after I got out of the gym, and it's always the same. I always walk to my car the same way. It's the same route. And after that workout and that cold shower that I take afterwards, I'm feeling great. I'm feeling very good in my body. So always when I'm turning around this corner, and I'm walking up to my car, it's like muscle memory by now. I'm reminding myself to really breathe in this air, the prana, the
Mhm,
beautiful energy.
mhm, mhm.
And I'm telling you, like sometimes it'll be stormy, it'll be windy here in Germany, you know. There's like a lot of snow, there's
Yeah,
like wind, whatnot, storms. um but you know, just appreciating to witness this and
mhm,
to be present with that no matter what it is, and then to fully inhale this and exhale this. It's a couple of steps to my car, it's not far, but it by now it's just like this ritual of feeling good in
yeah,
my body, stepping outside in the cold right now, and really taking those deep breaths and being present with that which is, you know. And um it's so I guess what I want to say with that is, um to maybe have like those anchors throughout the day,
yeah,
for you in the morning, for me as well, in the evening. Um, I don't know, before you make food, you know, I
mhm.
lived in a Zen Buddhist monastery for a while, and just like
Sure.
the stop, the break, the little moment before digging into food and really like eating is,
Wow.
moved me profound, like deeply, because it's just like this appreciation for
Okay.
why am I consuming this food right now? I'm doing this, and it's also when then prayers and stuff coming in. I'm doing this to nurture my body so I can, you know, pursue Buddha's way, you know. And this is
Mm,
just so, it's little things. And when I'm out,
mhm,
when I'll be sitting in a restaurant or something, I'm not doing a full ceremony there, but like I'm just like taking a brief moment, breathing in, you know, maybe sometimes folding my hands, closing my eyes, and then
mhm.
I'll be starting with the food. So um so yeah,
Well, we all have an opportunity for mindfulness 24/7. You can take a moment, you know. Thich Nhat Hanh, talked all the time about the walking meditation.
mm,
There's if any of us are sitting down and eating, we should take a moment. Because if we're sitting down and eating, we either prepared the food, which means somebody got the food from where it grew in a truck, out of the field, in a truck, to a store, to us, to then we prepared it. Or or if we're really, really lucky, we went to a restaurant, which means somebody put a capital investment into a building. Somebody was brave enough to go, you know what? I love cooking and I'm going to start a restaurant. I love that business. That's a huge risk. Somebody had took the risk to start a restaurant and then hired the employees, get all that equipment in that place. and then somehow sourced all these different food items from all this place, put it together in such a beautiful way, hired people to bring me and sit it in front of me. And I didn't have to do a thing. All I had to do was walk in the door, see some smiling faces, be treated like a king, sit down at a table. Here's everything. Would you like anything? Yes, I would. Bring me some drink. Awesome. We don't have to do a damn thing. We walk in, and then miracle upon miracles, what we asked for shows up. Like if that's not something to be grateful for and take a moment and be mindful and go, wow.
Mm.
And there was a great movie, I think, let's see if I can remember. I never remember the name of this movie. It was with Albert Brooks and Meryl Streep, and kind of in the 70s or 80s, I think is when the movie came out. And it's basically, the basic premise is when we die, we go to a way station. We don't, and in that way station, wherever that station is, we get judged. Oh, judging your life, I think is what it's called.
Mm.
And in that way place there, we get judged, and we either quote unquote get to go to heaven or hell. But while you're at the way station, there's restaurants and there's all kinds of stuff. Now, supposedly you're dead and you're not in your body, but you're still kind of there in your body. And you get to go to all these amazing restaurants. The food tastes absolutely incredible. And you can eat as much as you want. You never put on a pound. And it's like every sensory thing that you get to have as a human is there on steroids. And it's like, yeah, we in this body, I get to take the outside world, things that quote unquote are not me, and I put them in, and all of a sudden they become me. So that in itself is a mindfulness practice going, there's nothing out there that's not me.
Mm.
I am that, and that is me. So there's a huge thing to be grateful for. You talked about being outside and outside of the workout and just feeling that wind and that cold and that bracing before you get in the car. And it's like, yeah, if you were incarnated into human body, that experience wouldn't be happening to you. You wouldn't feel the wind. You wouldn't feel the cold air coming into your lungs. You wouldn't feel the pounding of nature outside. For many, many years, I lived in Santa Barbara, and when storms would come in, it's right on the coast. Oftentimes I would go to the beach and stand or sit there and just feel the power of that storm rolling in, and the wind and the rain blowing and picking up the sea foam and blowing that in my face, and just standing there and feeling that power. Holy crap, there's nothing more beautiful and amazing and enlivening than feeling the gifts that are around us. Lately, it's been really cold here. We had this huge rains and storms, and then that's gone. Cold weather's here. But during the days, the sun's been so nice and warm. So I go outside and I sit out and I drink some tea on the porch, and the cats are out there all stretched out in the sun. And the last couple of days, I've been like, wow. It's been absolutely breathly quiet, not a sound, no wind, and just this warm sun in this cold air. This is amazing. This is amazing to be in this. And if I'm in a place of amazing, if I'm in a place of awe, whatever phone call I get, whatever email I get, whatever interaction I have with another person, that awe just permeates like everywhere. Right? Ripples out. If I'm in life sucks, this shouldn't be happening to me. If I'm in victim mode, if I'm in the struggle, and of course the first Buddhist precept is life is struggling, but if I'm attached to that struggle, if I'm in it, then the emails I get, the phone calls I get, the interactions I have with the people around me are all going to be around struggle. And that's what I'm going to be rippling out. It's my pain, my suffering, my hurt. Right? So you're right. A lot of people don't do gratitude practice because it seems, what? How can that work? It's too simple. And it's simple for me because I've practiced it, and it's like it's a part of who I am. It's a part of my daily. It's like working out. It's like this is who I am. But if you're not in a place of gratitude And if you're not doing that ritual like all the time, every time you sit down and somebody brings you food, or you make a cup of coffee, or you have a phone call with somebody and you're like, hey man, I'm really grateful we had this conversation. Um, then maybe you're not a person who's in a place of gratitude. And maybe there's a reason why things are not going the way you think they should, or at least the way you perceive them are going in the way it's not going the way you think they should. So this is a place of me creating a palette, creating a personal experience that, in personal growth work, we talk about the difference between our intention and our impact. And if those two things are in alignment or not, right? My impact that I wish to have on the world is a positive one. I wish people or places or things when I leave to be better than they are before I got there. And we'll just be simple like our interaction today. My hope is to be in a place of gratitude and appreciation. My hope is to be present and in the logos, in the flow of what's happening here, whatever that's going to be. And at the end of it, you go, oh, that was awesome. He seems like a cool dude. I'd like to talk to him again in 6 months or a year. That was awesome. I don't want to get off the phone and go, God, that really sucked. It was really a waste of time. And I'm sorry we did that. I shouldn't have made that. I shouldn't have done that. Right. So I want to make sure that my intentions and the impact I'm having are in alignment. That means I've got to be in alignment with myself, just like your whole thing, inside out. It starts in here. Am I in alignment with myself? Am I in my truth? And when I say my truth, that's a tricky thing nowadays. Am I present and aligned? And if I am, the chances of us having a honest, truthful, meaningful interaction go up exponentially. If I'm suffering, if I'm in a place of fear, doubt, victimization, if I'm in a place of life sucks, then the chances of our interaction being life sucks is pretty good.
It is, yeah.
So this gratitude practice, so simple, but it's just like meditation and the cold plunge or working out or all these things that we do. All of these are tools, and everybody's got a bunch of different tools that they use to keep their mind right, to keep their body right, so that when I am in interaction with whatever other is, I'm setting the stage for the best possible outcome. Like I've done my work to make sure that whatever comes out of this is at least the best it could be in this moment. If I'm not doing that, my intention and my impact might be out of alignment.
Yes. And now we all imagine a world where there's only people like this, or all people would think like this. Oh my God.
But that's not real life, because we suffer, right? Because we have cancer and somebody just got killed, we got laid off from our job. Reality is out there, right? And reality, this is part of a reality, but there's all the other parts, right? There's everything else. If I'm doing the best that I can here, that's why the prayers and the meditation and the practices, I can be in the best state possible to handle all those things that are coming, that are happening. They are happening.
Yes.
Right? No question. All of that's going to be there. So can I prepare myself in the best possible way? One of the greatest things I ever heard, I hopefully shared it in the podcast with Adam, I'm sure I did, is that it's not what happens to us, it's what we make it mean. Okay?
I have it written right
what
here.
Happens to us, not what happens to us, it's what we make it mean. Humans are meaning-making machines. That's how we make sense of reality. Information's out there. Our perceptions are picking and choosing information. We're not getting it all. we're choosing things based on our past experiences, and then we attach meaning to all of those things. Now, right now, I'm safe and I'm warm, got some tea. There's very little, unless a bomb happens or something happens here, that's going to affect my current Zen state. I'm in a pretty good place right now. But maybe I could hear out in the background that generator that's running right now, all of a sudden I could hear a boom, right? And then, like, no sound.
Mm.
I'm going to make that mean something. Like, oh, fuck. And then there's going to be a cascading emotional, physical, spiritual reaction to, oh, fuck. Right? Now, my job, and this is what we do in 12-step work, in addiction work, is to make the stimulus reaction to action thing, like, hone that down as short as possible. I could make it, oh, fuck, for the next week or two.
Oh, yeah.
And when we're in sadness and when we're in reaction mode, I could make, I've taught, I have friends who have had things happen 6 months ago, a year ago, 5 years, 15, 20 years ago. They're still in the reaction to that event. Son of a bitch left me, blah, 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 blah.
Yes,
My life was
yes,
sucked
yes.
since that time, right? So I'm still reliving the event that happened 5, 10, 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Like I've been in Germany a lot, and I've led a lot of trainings there with men, young men like yourself. And one thing that they talked about that came out really early is that they were still carrying the burden of what their fathers and their grandfathers did in the Second World War, and they carry that burden with them wherever they go in the world. Anytime their voice, they say something and it's the accent comes out, oh, you're German, there's an immediate reaction, and it's usually negative.
Yep.
And so then there's this thing, oh, I'm German. Oh, that means my dad, my grandfather, World War II, Holocaust, World War I. Like, how long have the Germans been trying to take over the world? Right? And everything I make that mean, and everything that's sitting on me, and I didn't do anything. I just got born. It's not my fault. I was just born in Germany, not me. But yet, name German, accent, place of birth, all of a sudden means all this stuff.
Yeah.
And so we did so much work around, in each man's individual way, how can I see and feel that reaction, carry and know that the burden is there, but also find the blessing. Blessing is we're not doing that right now.
Yep.
Yes, that was my forefathers, but I can put it down. It's my inheritance. Yes, I have a bundle that I carry around with me. This is my inheritance. This is what was handed down. I can choose to carry it or not. I can choose to carry that burden, or I can put it down. I can bury it where it needs to be because it's not mine. Okay? And so what I make those things mean, what I want to do when I have that stimulus and I have the reaction, I'm a human, that's going to happen. But can I hone that reaction as short as possible?
Yeah.
And not go down the whole road of, oh, I'm bad, I'm wrong, therefore I start then doing the things that I've learned to do, my coping mechanisms, my addictions, and I start doing all that stuff to deal with the feelings that I don't like, that I don't want to have right now. Right?
Yeah.
So the easiest way to do that, the first step, is to be grateful. Right? Hey, I'm German. I was born in this beautiful place. It's a beautiful country. We're amazing people. We're engineers. We're really heady. Like, we can figure shit out. We know process. Holy crap. We can process the hell out of anything.
Yeah.
We got that. Right? So, like, what are the good things that I can be grateful for that my fathers did do right? Or my grandfather did right, my great-grandfather. And even if they didn't, in a circle I was leading, I do every Monday night, I was talking about the story. The stories we make up about things. And I was even thinking about that myself this morning for myself. Yes, I've had a life. I grew up in a place. I had parents. I had I had familial input. So my family was a certain way, and there was all the pathologies and all the stuff that happened within that. Then I
Mm.
also had all this cultural input, and all that stuff molded who I am. And therefore, I have these stories about who I am, what happened,
Yeah.
how it affected me, and how I go about myself in the world. I create a narrative. I'm living in a narrative. I'm living in a story.
Yeah.
I can rewrite that story anytime I want to. And whether it's true or not doesn't matter. I can keep telling the stories of how my father was and how my mother was and where I grew up and all the family dynamic. I can keep reiterating that story if I want to. And it's quote unquote true from the perspective of a 0 to 7 to 10 to 12-year-old old person. Those experiences are true. And what does a 0 to 7 or 12 or 14-year really know about the world and reality?
Yeah.
Not a lot.
No.
So I can rewrite that story. I don't have to keep telling that same story. I could tell the story of, God, my dad was so amazing. He taught me how to fish and he taught me how to hunt. He taught me how to work on stuff. He taught me to be a good worker. Like I can show up any place, anywhere, and I can meld right in and I can hand you the right tool. As soon as you turn around to get it, I'm already 3 steps ahead of you. I know what you need. I know how to work. He did that for me. My mother taught me about art and she bought me my first guitar. She cared about beauty and she cared about fostering the most inspirational and artistic expressions of myself. I could tell those stories
Mm.
every time rather than my dad was a lifelong alcoholic. He drank himself to death, absent. My mother was bipolar. My mother was all this stuff. Living with her was like on eggshells. I can tell one of those two narratives, and one puts me right into, oh, fuck, I'm screwed. This is why I'm the way I am. That's true. But I also can tell another narrative, which is also true. And how do
Mm.
I feel when I tell that narrative? I feel great when I tell that narrative. It's as true as the other one.
Yeah.
I get a choice in any given moment what story I'm going to weave about myself and the world. I get to choose that. You, of German descent, living in Germany, we all know what the truth is, but there are other truths
Yeah.
as well. And you get to tell, without ignoring one narrative, you could tell another narrative, like in the United States right now, and certainly throughout the Western world, there is this, for lack of a better term, woke, white man is bad, white man is colonizer, everything that men do, toxic masculinity is bad and wrong
Yeah.
and need to be punished or reparations or whatever. That's a narrative. Another narrative, poverty is down all over the world hugely. More people have been lifted out of poverty in the last 35, 40 years than in human history. Human history. You and I are safe.
Yeah.
We are on a platform right here where we can talk to each other thousands and thousands of miles away from each other. Men built the roads, they built the houses, they provided the electricity. They did everything it's possible for us to do right here. There are multiple stories we can tell about ourselves in the world. Doesn't mean it ignores the other stuff. But if I tell one narrative, I'm going to check in with myself. And how do I feel when I talk about myself or the world a particular way? What do I do with that information into the world when I tell that story, that myth? But what if I tell another myth? This is why we had the Greek gods. This is why we had Lancelot going into the dragon. This is why these myths are there for us to go, but I could live another myth. I could live the myth of, yeah, I'm a guy who goes out and fights dragons within myself and others. I'm the guy who's willing to look in the cave. I'm the guy which means I'm willing to look at the parts of myself that I hide, repress, and deny. I'm willing to go face the dragon. I'm willing to take a risk and slay that. And guess what I get? I get the gold and I get the virgin. The gold, unlimited prosperity, unlimited possibility. Virgin represents new possibilities, a new beginning, something fresh and new within myself, if I'm willing to do that. So each one of us could tell the story, bro, I'm a knight. I wear shining armor and I sit in King Arthur's court.
Mm.
This is what my life is about. I'm out there slaying my dragons and I'm inspiring others to slay theirs. That's a story. That's a myth. Why not live that myth? Right? Versus everything's bad, everything's effed up, everything's wrong, everything has to be destroyed and start all over again. I'm not so sure that that's a good myth to live by.
I mean, it's yeah, amen. It resonates so deeply, and yeah, when we're talking about, I don't have to look far. I don't have to look far. I see the direct effects of war in Germany within my ancestry. I see it in my father, and therefore in me. I see that.
Yep.
And I'm telling you, I've got some work to do. And that is, yeah, I was introduced to doing family constellations recently. Work with them.
Oh yeah, Bert Hellinger's work, absolutely. Yeah.
And wow,
Yeah.
with myself as well as with others, I've seen countless, and this is like, speak to those men, to those Germans, and when you see them then going through that ancestral trauma, and you see it really, you see it play out really in real time and with your own eyes. You see the shame, the guilt, the deep hurt against what everything that they, and my granddad, he lost his arm because he was operating tanks. Tank was hit. He lost his arm, splitters all over. Had to be amputated. He got home. He was traumatized deeply, and then my father came onto this world, and obviously, you know, he couldn't show up the way that he wanted. So my dad, you know, had his fair share of traumatic parenting, or whatever you want to, what label you want to put on it. And now, and then he reacted to that in a certain way, and that shaped his life. And then I came into this world, and my dad basically, obviously with the intention of never again will I, and as soon as I'm going to be having children, like, I'm going to make it so that they have it, like, that they're better off, you know, and this never happens again. And out of that grew a disbalanced sort of, let's say, distribution of attention on certain parts of my life, and attention where he was really overprotective in some areas, and with some very loose and whatnot. Like, I don't even have to go into the specifics, but it played out. And doing this work, I was seeing it play out in front of my eyes, and the trauma that was there and is still there. And again, simple things, you know. I'm doing this work, and I'll be you know, looking another man in the eye, and in those constellations, representing my dad, and my dad and my granddad, and I'll be crying, and I'll be shouting, I'll be having all those reactions, and then at the same time jumping on a call with my dad and just turning cold, you know. It's just hard. It's hard, man. And I'm just like, something's fishy, you know, something's fishy here. Like, how can I open up to those, you know, how can I open up to a stranger like this? And then, you know, because Vince, like, I want to integrate this. I want to show up, you know, as this integrated man. And so you know, and not,
Well, I've got an offering
yeah.
for you around that if you're open to it.
I'm absolutely open to this.
All right. So let's start with family constellation work. For those of you that are listening, hopefully enjoying this conversation thus far. Um, Gratitude practice, huge. If you haven't done family constellation work yet, I highly recommend it. I did this work and studied it for many, many, many years. And what it offers basically is a cognitive reframe over and a recalibrating of the story that I tell about myself and the world and what happened in my family. And it is a 3D, it's a 3D reframe.
Yeah.
And it really is effective. And so if you're not familiar with Bert Hellinger's work, if you're not familiar with family constellation work, it started in Germany and worked its way around the world and is used everywhere. And if you haven't done it yet, look into it. Please go out there. It's a very powerful therapeutic process. So that's the first thing. I love family constellation work. So I took a couple of notes while you're talking. I want to make sure that I get to these. Yeah. So you talked about doing this work, having these experiences, especially with dad, and then picking up the phone and talking to dad, and like everything that happened in the family constellation work is not happening in the real world, quote unquote. All right, so I'm going to back up a little bit. Yes, there were culturally all over the world, from our grandfathers and great grandfathers' experiences, generationally, men who come back from war and they either had kids before they left or they had kids when they got back. Wow. Dad never talks about his feelings. He's so quiet. He's so stoic. So there's this cultural pendulum post baby boomer that went, oh, those men don't know how to talk about their feelings. So we're going to raise children who are all about feelings. And now in these latest millennials, X's, and whatever else's they are, feeling, everything is my feelings. Like it's all feeling generated. So let's just pause for that for just a minute. What exactly was dad or grandpa going to talk about? After seeing what he saw, experienced what he experienced, is there anything that he could have said that would have made any sense to us who weren't there? Like nothing. How could he talk about horror and the worst possible manifestation of human interaction with other humans? What could he say over the dinner table? Nothing. What he did was try to make sense of what he saw, and more importantly, what he did every day, every moment, try to make sense of what he did. Because there's some part of him inside of that dragon that was allowed and fostered to come out. And God knows what he did. And he's still trying to make sense of that. Who am I that I did those things? And now I'm sitting down with this family as if nothing happened. That's an impossible task to make sense of. So the psyche splits, the psyche has to split off. That's not me. I have to put that away. I can't talk about that. I can't relive that. It's too horrific. And then there's this other me that has to show up. And the best I can do is keep my mouth shut, try not to explode too much. What did they do? They drank. That was the drug. That was the only drug they could have, was drinking.
Yeah.
Quiet, drink, and occasionally, if allowed, explode. Out of fear and frustration of, why me? How could I do those things? How could other people do those things to each other? And then literally, how do you make sense of horror, the worst possible scenarios that humans can do to each other, and then, oh, that's done. And then we come home and we're sitting here having roast beef. And like everything's okay.
Yeah.
That's mind blowing. Like that's really hard, literally mind blowing. Mind splits apart. So kids are raised up and dad's always quiet or he's always angry. Yeah, he's quiet and angry. because we have no idea what he did and what he saw and what he experienced, because we're only thinking about ourselves. We're thinking about what we want. We're not thinking about what he needs right now, which is support and love and understanding and a shit ton of therapy. So then while we go down another generation, I'm never going to be like my dad. So I'm going to raise my children differently. Every father always says that. I'm never going to say those things. I'm never going to do those things. So now we have the second generation after that. And what does your dad do to you? Woo-hoo! Feel everything, do everything. I'm going to be the best dad possible. And your grandfather never, like, therapy wasn't a thing. That wasn't an option. For your father, it was.
Yeah.
And for you, it certainly is. For our generation and other generations, it's absolutely. We can go get help. Lots of it out there. And there's no stigma around it whatsoever. Like, you should be doing that. So now you go and you have these experiences. I'll speak from my experience, especially with my mom. That's where I got the best healing in family constellation work around my relationship with my mother. So as soon as I started doing that work, and I had this kind of multiple years, sometimes decades going by, where my mother and I would not speak to each other. As soon as I started doing family constellation work, I picked up the phone and started reaching out and trying to recreate that relationship, because all of a sudden, instead of looking at her from the wounded child, from I didn't get what I wanted and I didn't get my needs met, I went, oh, right, she grew up in a horribly a violent household. She was beaten daily by her mother. She was in her family, they were the only white kids in an all black neighborhood. They were very poor. I started to be able to now see her from an adult and not a child. And gave me a completely different perspective and a different way to talk to her and give her the love that she needed. Now, with your dad, that's exactly what I'm going to recommend to you. You're not a boy anymore. You don't talk to your dad from a place of judgment and you did this and you did that, or you didn't do this and you didn't do that, and I never got what I wanted. You talk to dad for, Dad, how's your day? What was it like for you growing up with grandpa? Tell me about what it was like when you were a kid. You get curious. Rather than judgmental, you get curious. Tell me about you, Dad. Tell me about your friends. Tell me about what it was like to go to school. And you start being a curious interviewer to get to know him as the human, not the dad.
Yeah.
A human being, just like you, who didn't understand where he was, didn't understand the world, trying to make sense of it, growing up in a family and then a culture, and you think you're carrying a burden of the war. What kind of burden do you think he carried? His father did that. Like, he's right next to it in his blood. That's my dad. What kind of inheritance burden is he carrying on his back? And what can you do as a beautiful young man who's 2 generations away, has opportunity and perspectives that he never could have, to go, Dad, how can I help you take a few of those rocks off your back? Now, you don't say that directly, but you do it indirectly by being curious. What was it like growing up with Grandpa? What did he talk about? What was it like? And listen to his pain and listen to his story. Get curious about his story. And this goes for all of us. We have to move at some point from little to big and quit seeing our parents as the big ones, as God, who know everything and who we're supposed to have all the answers, and we're supposed to treat us in a certain way and love us in a certain way. We were supposed to get this thing that we never, ever got. Dad, why didn't you ever see me? Dad, why didn't you ever acknowledge me? Mom, why didn't you love me the way you were supposed to do? That's a 2-year-old. That's a 3-year-old. That's a 5-year-old. What an adult does when you finally grow up and you get out of your own way and the things that I think I need and want out of the world and I need and want from my parents, and I shift that dynamic and I come from a place of, Mom, tell me about what it was like to grow up in that neighborhood. What was it like for you to go to school that way? Look at them. They too were a child, just like us. They too were confused, angry, hurt. You think we didn't get what we wanted from our parents? You know, they got anything they wanted from their parents? Ever?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, no, they didn't. And they're still trying to figure it out. They still have those stories. When my father was dying, I finally got him into a care facility who that would take alcoholics. And because he couldn't live at home anymore and he was falling all the time and he was just a mess. And finally got him into a place, on a Wednesday. And I went to see him. And then I went to the staff, and the staff said, yeah, we're going to do all these tests on him tomorrow, on Thursday. Come back on Friday, and we're going to tell you about what our rehab thing we're going to do for him. Awesome. Great. So I go back on Friday. Now, this is a man who spent the last part of his life living alone out in the woods. He had a very specific kind of life and lifestyle. And now he's in a room with other people, and he's in a place with other people. He hates it. Hates it.
Right.
And he's really weak and spending a lot of time in bed, almost, broken physically, mentally, spiritually. So I go to see him, Pop, how you doing? Blah, blah, blah. Have a nice conversation with him. I got to go talk to the people. This is on a Friday. I go talk to the people. This is what we're going to do. This is going to be the program. I'm going to line it out. So I come back and I see him. I said, Dad, I'll come back tomorrow, Saturday, and visit you. And when I came in that Friday, the first thing he did, he looked at me and he said, son, I'm so glad you're here. That was the nicest thing he said to me in decades, like decades. Wow. That was awesome.
Yeah.
So we had the conversation, and then I'm driving home. And I'm thinking about all of this. And I'm thinking about the things that I'm telling you, stories and all the work that I had done. This was in 2017. And then it finally occurred to me, right. My father left home at 14. His father was an alcoholic. His mother was an alcoholic, horribly abusive family. He never learned how to love. He was 14 when he left home. He never had a positive male role model in his life till way later in his life. So he didn't know how to give me, quote unquote, the things that I think I wanted and needed as a boy. He gave me all these other things. He gave me what he could, how to hunt, how to fish, how to work, how to function in the world, which is huge. I know a lot of people who don't know how to do any of those things. But he didn't love me, right? He didn't give me the love that I want. So I'm driving home, and then this huge little light bulb comes over my head and goes, Vince, that's my job. I can teach him what love looks like. From this point forward, I'm going to be an example of what love looks like. Because I got the opportunity to do all this work to figure that shit out. He never did. So I'm like, okay, right. I'm going to be the example of love. I'm going to get over my wounded self. I'm going to get over my wounded boy. I'm going to get over this whole thing that I need and want shit from him. He can't do that. He never could. He certainly can't right now. So I'm going to give that. That's what I'm going to do. And the first thing Saturday morning, I get a call that he didn't wake up and he's in a coma. And then he died later that day. So I tell this story. Yeah. So, I went to see him and I sat with him in the hospital and I held his hand and I played his favorite music. He was out, but I had those conversations with him that we could never, ever have in real life. And I told him that I loved him. And I told him that I was sorry about what he went through as a boy. And I told him that I'm sorry I didn't see that part of me. And I had those real meaningful conversations with him. And I hope that in whatever state he was in, he was still here, that wherever he was hovering at in that room or God knows where, that he at least heard or felt that. And even if he didn't, I was able to rewrite a narrative, rewrite a story. Instead of being the needy little kid, now I can be an adult and see him that he too was a needy little boy at some point in time. He didn't get his needs met from his father, ever. In fact, quite the opposite. So,
wow.
As we mature as human beings, from my perspective, part of my job is to move from victim, move from poor me, move from I don't get and never got the things that I think I should have got from my parents. Those are the first people we blame for everything that happened to us. And stand up with a straight spine and now look at the little one in them. And I teach this method specifically in doing any type of therapeutic work, any type of somatic work in circles and groups with you. And I'll use you and your girlfriend for an example. Girlfriend comes home from work and she's pissed off. She's angry. Or maybe you did or said something, or maybe worse, you didn't do or say the thing that you were supposed to do. And now she's pissed off. All right? She's triggered. Instead of you standing there or sitting there looking at this triggered adult, what I want you to do is look through her left eye intently, like you don't take your glare off that left eye. I want you to go through the left eye down to the heart, and I want you to see the wounded 3-year-old or the 5-year-old or the 7 or 9-year-old girl who's sitting in front of you who's hurt and who's angry. Because that's who's really there. Now, it's a lot easier to do that with our friends, boyfriends, girlfriends. It's really hard to do with a parent.
Yeah.
Because we've all our lives, we've been little, they've been big. We've been little person, they've been a god, literally. And we have to get to a place of they're not a god. They're just a human. They're just a person, just like us. No manual, no explanation of why we're here, no how to do any of this, just like us. And they went through certain things that made them the way they are. Just like I went through certain things that made me the way I am. But now can I look at them and then do the mental jujitsu to go, see the wounded little boy, see the wounded little girl. Just like us, fragmented, hurt, scared, terrified. Why doesn't dad do X? Why is mom this way? Why is the world this way? Why do they beat me up in school? Like all of it. They too were a little one. Yeah. And if I can see my dad as the hurt little boy who grew up in a horribly violent home, then everything else like makes sense. And I could say, oh, I can forgive him. And there's nothing to forgive. Maybe it's more like, wow, thank you, Dad. I didn't grow up in a quote unquote violent home. At least he stopped that. Yeah. Not physically violent. That part stopped with him. He brought that to an end. There were other things, but it wasn't that. Thank you. And maybe I can start coming to him from a place of compassion and understanding and curiosity. Right? If I can come to him from that, what do you do when people start asking you questions about your life? You probably go, you get all animated and you want to tell your story, right? What do you think your dad and your mom want to do when you ask questions? They want to tell their story.
Yeah.
So you come to them and you turn the voice memo on this thing, whether in person or on the phone, and you just start asking questions. Because the more you can get to understand mom and dad, who they were as children growing up, you can understand what made them the adults that they are, which means then you can understand what made you you. I'm the way huge. I am because of how he became the way he became. And then especially, do you have any children yet?
Not yet, no.
Okay. Well, all of that will shift. Then shifts when you have a child. Because when I was 23 and had my son, and then you have to keep a little person alive.
Yeah.
Like for the rest of their life, just let alone in the first few years. I had to save my son's life. I know 4 times. He almost died. I saved his life as a little person.
Right.
That'll change your perspective in a heartbeat. Because then you realize, right, my mother, if I was lucky, fed me day in and day out. Somebody came and got me every time I screamed. Every time I wet myself, somebody changed me. Dad came in and held me and played with me. Somebody at some point in time had to pick me up and hold me, keep me safe, keep me warm, keep me fed, keep me bathed, or I would not be here. Mom and dad gave up their lives to keep me alive. So if you can't be grateful, if I can't, if the people listening to us, if we look at our parents and go and write them off, you know what? You come from a long line of people who successfully made it. Every one of your ancestors did the right thing and were successful, regardless of the story. Regardless, we could go back and look at the quote unquote Germans as being horrible people. But if you just take your lineage, just your family bloodline, going back to the beginning of time, every single one of them were successful, they prospered, they loved, and they procreated, right? They created the next offspring, which got you to here. So you have so much to be grateful for. I have so much to be grateful for, regardless of wasn't born rich or I wasn't born wealthy or my family didn't have XXX. You know what my family did have? Food, shelter, and love. Clearly.
Yeah.
That's what got me here. Okay. So that alone is a huge amount to be grateful for. And that's a narrative that's a story I can tell to be proud of.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
So then I can look at my dad and go, wow, Dad, we came from some pretty great stock. We came from some pretty cool people because they all made it. They didn't die of hunger. They didn't get killed by the tiger. They didn't get killed by their neighbor. They might have after they procreated, but they at least got to that part. And Dad, thank you for keeping me alive. Mom, thank you for feeding me, sheltering me, clothing me. Look at the nice apartment I live in now, the nice home or home I live in. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Absolutely.
Even if everything else was effed, at least the first, you're here, which is evidence they did a lot of things right. And you have a lot to be grateful for because they did all those things right.
Absolutely.
I have a lot to be grateful for because my ancestors did a lot of things right. So again, it's not what happens to us, it's what we make it mean. Can I create a meaning? If my narrative in my world, if my mythology that I create about myself in the world leads me to a discordance between my intention and my impact on myself or others, then I'm clearly not telling the right story to myself or to others.
Yeah, no.
I ain't telling the right story. Why don't I tell the story of, my life's great, man. I woke up today. I get to do cool stuff. I got food. I got water. I got shelter. I got a car. I got friends. I got a family. I got electricity. I got lights. I got a warm bed. That's better than, bro, you and I are in the top 2%, in the top 1%. Whether we want to know that or acknowledge that or not, anybody that's got a phone, anybody that's got internet access, anybody that's got a computer, anybody that's got warm food in a bed, we're in the top 1-2%, period. In history, right? Our ancestors didn't live like this.
Nope.
Right?
And you'll laugh because another gym moment, like they turned off, they didn't turn it off, but I think it just broke. The warm water broke, okay, in the gym. For 4 hours, for a window of 4 hours, okay.
Everybody lost their mind.
They lost their mind. They were even announcing like, okay, it's gonna be out from noon until 4 p.m. Okay, yep. So if you can schedule your workout, they even offer that. They even announced that, and then there's like people coming, and they'll be out of their minds in the locker room. They'll be shouting. They'll be screaming. They'll be, what is that? It's cold enough outside and whatnot. It's what you say, and it's really when I'm looking at that, it's really taken like what is like while you were talking, responsibility came for me.
Yeah, huge, huge.
So, like,
Okay, so if we're going to talk about being a mature adult, and especially if we're going to talk about men's work or women's work, if you want freedom, you take responsibility. That's the number one thing that leads to freedom. Take responsibility for something. Be
mm,
accountable.
absolutely.
I'm responsible and accountable to my reactions to the stimulus of the outside world, which means I walk in, clearly didn't listen and pay attention to the signs and the announcements that there's no hot water. And then I go in and I have this reaction. And what do? I lay all my shit, all my years of frustration and garbage on the poor person working at the front who gave me all the information.
Absolutely.
And
And
I'm
who?
not taking
Yeah,
responsibility for
absolutely.
getting the information. And I'm not taking responsibility for my impact on other people. So I'm going to dump all this shit on them.
Polluting.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Um,
And when I'm really taking a close look at myself and hearing you talk, uh, like taking responsibility for what is given and what was given to me,
yes.
and saying, now, Maximilian, look the fuck around what you have, and now
Yeah.
get your ass up and do something with it.
Do something with
And
it. Yeah, because
yeah,
your mom and dad kept you alive for something. You have a gift, right? Your dad fought, your grandfather fought, and his father fought, and God knows how many generations it goes back. All these people sacrificed so that you and I could be here right now, not starving, not in war, not poverty, like to live a good, peaceful life.
absolutely.
That's what they all fought we're fighting for, right? And humans have been doing that since the beginning of time. There's nobody driving up my road right now, thankfully, armed, ready to take my place away from me because my place is better than their place. That's
Yeah.
not happening right now, right? So, A, gratitude. B, responsible. Can I take responsibility for the fact that if you listen to the Four Agreements, what Don Miguel Ruiz talks about in there is that we, even as children, when mom and dad say things, there's this assumption that we make, oh yeah, whatever mom and dad says is the truth or is real. In other words, the stories that we hear, the reality that they're laying out for us as we grow up, that's real. We just
Mm,
assume that we're sponges and we take it in. From the Toltec perspective is, no, not necessarily. Even as little wee ones, we have the choice to believe that or not, i.e., take responsibility for what we're being told. And am I going to live that myth or am I going to live another myth? So when I talked about this, seeing mom and dad, seeing parents or grandparents as equals, that's exactly what I mean. I'm going to take responsibility for me right here, right now, where I'm at in my life. They didn't do anything to me. I did to me. And me little is long gone. There's been more of me big than there ever was of little. I'm
mm,
58 years old. I was only little for 10, 11, 12 years. I've been big for a long time. I'm responsible for what I say, what I do, what I think, what I feel, all of it. And yes, young folks, I did say I'm responsible for my feelings. And I'll say it out loud to all of you listening. You're responsible for your feelings, not me, not Maxie, not the poor, horrible people at the gym who had to get the pipes fixed, not the people who didn't make your tire exactly right and you got a flat tire on the freeway today, or the person who yelled at you on the phone. You are 100% responsible for your state at all times. What
yeah.
I'm not responsible for is the input up to the moment. I am responsible for everything I do with the input afterwards. What
Afterwards.
I
Yeah.
make it me, how I feel, how I react. Just because you said you're a dirty, rotten SOB doesn't mean I get my part. Do I punch you? Do I punch myself? I.e., the German story. When I hear, oh, you're a German, from that moment on, you're responsible for what you make that mean about you, dad, the world, everything. You weren't responsible for the words that you heard. You weren't responsible for that, but you are responsible for everything from that point forward.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Yeah.
I'm responsible for how I walk, how I talk, how I react, all of it. Which means then I could look at dad and go, Dad, must have been so hard growing up with grandpa. Tell me about that. Must have been really rough,
Yeah.
right? So I'm no longer coming from a place of victim. I'm coming from a place of a responsible, respectful adult to see him as a human, to see mom as a human, to see others as human who are just as dismayed, just as lost, just as like, why are we here as I am? What am I supposed to be doing? They don't know either.
Yeah.
Nope, they don't have a book. No one's got the book. There's no instruction manual. They don't have the answers, and I don't. That's not happening. Like all this we're creating in our world and our narrative that then creates not only a state, but the way that I walk through the world. Like I had a recent thing where there's this event happening, and I didn't get invited to the event.
Hmm.
So in current terms, that would be some FOMO, fear of missing out.
Yeah.
Right? And I had this whole narrative going on. They don't want me. I'm not needed. They don't love me. They don't respect me. They don't see me. Like all of this stuff circling around inside of me. What I'm making it mean. They didn't make it mean that. I'm making it mean all of that stuff. Just me out here alone in the woods. I got this whole thing going on.
Yeah.
Right? Rather than, oh, I didn't get invited to the event. Cool. I got a free weekend. There's some stuff that there's some more things I can get accomplished. I can spin any story I want. Oh, thank God the hot water's out because I've been really wanting to try cold showers for a while. Now I have to do the cold shower thing.
That's exactly what I did.
Finally,
I
I'm
bloody
take the
want
risk.
to.
I'm going to do it.
Exactly.
Right.
And guess what? I stood
And
in
I'm
there
not
3
alone.
minutes.
There's a whole shower full of people who we're all going to do the. Let's all do it together. You could have looked around and said, "Okay, guys, I need help. Let's do this together." Okay.
Exactly.
1, 2, 3. Boom. We all jump in. Like that could have been that experience, and it could have been amazing. Meeting new people, overcoming a challenge, something that I've been fear and haven't had the discipline to do, bringing in others, creating connection. Let's all do this together. That could have been an amazing moment. And all of a sudden now I got 3 or 5 or 7 or 10 or 20 new bros that we can all hang out with because now we all have this collective experience that I had the courage to create.
Absolutely.
That could have been the narrative. Right?
Yep. In harmony with what is, I'm telling
In
you.
harmony with what is,
Yeah.
taking responsibility for what is. This is here and now. This is the thing. I didn't ask for it. I didn't create it, quote unquote. But, there's that. I have a friend who's been in 3 car accidents. And there's a narrative that this keeps happening to me.
Right.
That's a story. Car accidents did happen. She's in the car. Those things did happen to her. But what another narrative is, certainly a more powerful one, is I chose to get in the car that day. I chose to be in that place at that time in that moment. I chose that.
Yeah.
Now, if I take responsibility I chose the time I showed up at the gym. I chose to pay attention or not pay attention to all the placards, all the announcements, all the stuff. I chose to be at the gym when the water was out, when the hot water was out. That's my choice. Now, what do I do with it? Now, if I come from that perspective, then I am a choice. I am responsible. I'm not a victim. It's not happening to me.
To me. It's for me.
I'm creating. I created the time. I created the no water situation. I did that because I could have come 4 hours later. I could have come tomorrow. Hot water. I created that experience. But no, I created cold water experience rather than cold water experience happened to me. So
Huge.
if I come from a place of taking 100% responsibility for all of it, good, bad, or ugly. Then I'm a choice, or what I would more say, co-creating with spirit.
Mm.
Like now, if I'm responsible for this, now I can dance with the possibilities rather than be a victim to them. Now I
Yeah,
can
have
dance
fun
with
with
what
them.
is.
Yes, yes.
Now I can have fun, right?
Exactly.
Because
Because the reality is the
because
same,
the
you know?
reality is like, well, the reality of the situation is the same, but now I could co-create a whole
Yeah.
different reality.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
a whole
Exactly.
different experience.
Exactly. And I guess like the common, like a misconceptional, like a fear is, looking out into the world and the state of the world and then hearing, all right, brother or sister, taking responsibility will free you. And then they'll be looking at you like, responsibility for like everything? Like, I can't
Yes,
carry this,
yes, yes,
That's too big of
yes.
a, like,
No, I'm so
there's
glad
no
you brought this
way,
up.
you know?
Right. Oh, I'm not responsible for global warming. I'm not responsible for the pain and the suffering in the world. Really? No, you absolutely 100% are. But one step beyond that, this is what is. We're born into what is. Every generation, just like that amazing song, and I forget the Mike and the Mechanics, every generation blames the one before. That always happens. Okay? Always, always, always. Your father blamed your grandfather for all the war and all that stuff that
Yes.
happened. You're wrong. You're bad. Look what you did to us. Right? Which is exactly what the Germans did coming out of World War One. Oh, this thing happened, and now all the world's pissed off at us, and we're pissed off because now we have to live under all these conditions. Those young people clearly blamed their ancestors, and they were pissed off about it. Which then, of course, sets the ball tumbling to we're not going to take it anymore, right?
Yeah.
We're going to fight our way out of it. But we're born also. We may not have created the situation we were born into, but we're here. If we take responsibility, part of the reason we're born is to take responsibility and do something about it. The technology, the brain power that's on the planet right now can easily solve these issues, which every generation has since the beginning of time. But instead, they're like, oh, poor me. It's not my fault. Everything has to die. Everything has to be stripped away. Everything has to be redone so that we can save this thing. No, bullshit. Step up, take responsibility, and find ways to fix it.
Mm.
This is the hero's journey. Find
Yeah.
something that pisses you off. Find something that annoys the hell out of you that's going on in the world. That's your thing. Step forward and put a step forward to dealing with that thing. Right? If
That's
world hunger is
huge.
your thing, great. Take responsibility and step forward. What can I do? If pain and suffering is your thing, if global warming is your thing, whatever that challenge is that drives you crazy, then take a step forward in doing and take responsibility and then step forward. Not from blame, not from victimhood, not from, oh, this shouldn't be happening. Because if you are, then what you're doing is attaching to the opposite thing that's going to get you the thing that you want.
Hmm.
You're attaching to the story. If you're, this should not be happening versus this is happening,
Ex-
that's two different mind frames, right?
And it's already happening. Like it's yeah, it's
Is happening since the beginning of time. It's always happening. Whatever all this is, whatever this beautiful matrix is, it's happening. You think
absolutely.
our if we go back far enough time, the Neanderthals and before them sitting in the cave going, shit, what's happening is we're out of food. And what is happening is I have to now, she's going to stay in here with the little ones. I have to go out there where it's dangerous to get something to bring back in here where it's safe.
Yeah.
That's what's happening. And I don't want to go out there because it's scary and it's dangerous. See these claw marks on my arm? That's what happened last time. And I barely didn't come back. But I have to go back out there. That's what is happening. Hunger, my job is sacrifice to get food so hunger doesn't happen for her and the little one. That's no
Yeah.
different than today, right here, right now. Things
Yeah.
are
So
happening.
yeah.
What can I take responsibility for? And then take my gifts, whatever those God given gifts are, whatever I'm good at, whatever my talents and skills are, and apply those talents and skills in a positive way that brings beauty, love, a light, and alignment into reality. Like I get to choose that.
Yes.
Rather than
Yes.
being against it, I can be for it. Thank God there's global warming, because guess what? I got some skills in science and I got some skills in things that actually makes that I can bring to bear on this. If that wasn't there, how am I supposed to bring those skills into the world? So thank God that's happening. Thank God there's hunger or poverty because I can do something about that. I'm good at that.
Yes. Yes.
That's a whole different mind frame.
No, it's a whole different mind game, and it's so empowering when you get out of your head into action, and you
Yes.
see the fruits of your labor like instantaneously, literally. Like I'm telling you, synchronicity. It's unbelievable. Like the stuff, so like apparently random, like happening for me right now since so basically, I got laid off my last job.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I got made
Mm-hmm.
redundant. It was not my free
Mm-hmm.
choice. Now, and I'm trying. It's a muscle I'm training. Not not in hindsight to think this will be good for something. I know it,
Well,
you know, or looking back at it, this was good for me. Now I can see it as it is happening. As it is happening, I'm saying to myself, okay, Maxi, you're out of a job, and this is for good. Like
mm-hmm.
this is showing you something. This is good
Mm-hmm.
right now. This is good. Okay, I'm fucking scared. Okay, this
Mm-hmm.
is good. This is good.
Mm-hmm.
And guess what? Out of I'm going to Berlin to an event. I'm browsing through eBay. Somebody 5 blocks away selling this mobile recorder. Like, this is for a very good price, and it's one that I wanted to have. If ever starting a podcast, I'm going to get this one. So I'm like, oh, wow, okay, I'm guessing I'm picking that up. Okay, so I get that recorder. Next day, I'm taking a walk outside. I'm recording my first podcast episode, not even with the plan of publishing it yet. I'm getting a message after recording that podcast episode. Hey, Maxi, haven't talked to you in a while. I know you've been planning on doing a podcast, years ago. If you ever come around doing one, I have a friend and he's doing some great spiritual work and stuff. So if you ever get around doing that project again, picking up the podcast again, I can hook you guys up. I'm like,
There you go. Mm-hmm.
what is this now?
Mm-hmm.
So, but I took action the moment I decided to. Basically, maybe it was that moment in that event, browsing through eBay and saying, I'm gonna buy this recorder because, yeah, now I have the time, now I have the resources. Because before I was just caught up in my job, I was just like working 50, 60 hours a week. I was just like in a different headspace. So now I'm open, I'm receptive, I'm seeing, I'm having the eyes to see, the ears to hear. And everything that happened afterwards is just, it's a chain of synchronicities falling into place without me forcing anything. And I'm also feeling like that I'm getting so sensitive for things that are out of this alignment, which I'm then responsible for, not the outside.
Yep.
Like I'm responsible for like this misalignment because like it's, and it, like you say, it's freeing, it's freedom. It's holding myself accountable for the bullshit stories I'm telling myself.
That's right.
For whatever external input I'm receiving, that apparently is so bad and it's making me feel so. The second I'm taking responsibility for it, it's changing everything, and it's yeah, and it's actually empowering me to then take on even more next time. So as as we were saying, this is too much for me to carry. I'm actually now like, give me more to carry. Like because I can take it. So like with my dad and with that stuff, like I'm more and more getting into a headspace where I'm feeling like, I think I can heal this financial trauma. Big thing. Big thing. Always. The narrative is it's not enough. We don't have enough money. There has to come more, because right now we can pay rent, but what if the car's breaking down, the washing machine is breaking down, and the kitchen sink needs to be repaired? Then we're screwed.
That's right.
Well, and so now I'm having the feeling of doing like this work and going to all of these amazing events and working on myself. I'm like, okay, I think I'm ready to take this on step by step and doing one more thing at a time, inviting my parents over for Christmas, first timer, first thing. Like, this is my place. I can be responsible for hosting a Christmas dinner here and catering for 6 people, which get the shit out of me. But I was like, okay, I think I'm ready. I'm 28. I think I'm ready. And so it's just, I guess, bottom line of what I want to say is, life's your guru, and it feeds me and it gives me the tiny breadcrumbs at the time that I'm able to process them. It's amazing. It's still scary. It's a lot of uncertainty right now, but the individual story it's not important. It's more like the attitude, the intention that you carry within you. I felt that's so powerful.
That's a big teaching that people really need to get. We have an illusion or a delusion as humans that we shouldn't be afraid. We shouldn't feel fear. And that's an utter lie. It's an utter delusion. If you want to do anything in this world, you have to be able to muster the ability to feel the fear and do it anyway. Because there's no not feeling fear. Yeah. We're on a globe spinning 300,000 miles an hour in the middle of space that could crumple, implode, fall apart, and has multiple times through its millions of year history. You better fucking be afraid. There's lots to be afraid of. We get in these cars and we have the delusion that we're going to get in the car's going to start, and we're going to get from where we are to where we want to go with no problem. The most dangerous transport on the planet. Every other way to travel is safer than the car. Okay? Things are going to happen in our lives. I've been laid off. I remember the story that I created around that. And just like you, it was the greatest thing that ever happened to me. Completely changed the course of my life. In the moment, it was scary and terrifying. And I was mad and I was scared. And I had all kinds of things around that. But no question, it was the best thing that ever happened to me, getting me out of the corporate world. And like you said, I was made redundant. That's a narrative. Or I was set free to be who I was brought on this planet to be. Somebody came in and unlocked the handcuff and set me free. That's another story to tell. Thank God they did that. Or I'd still be there serving that master and not bringing my gifts into the world the way that I could actually and was born to bring them. So there's all kinds of ways we can tell this narrative. Yeah, you could have your family over for dinner now. You can do that. You can show them. You could have dad and or mom or both on the podcast. You could interview them live. Talk about taking a fucking risk. Talk about scary. Don't ask him any of the questions I told you before. You just invite him on the podcast And then you start asking the questions real time. Dad, tell me about growing up with grandpa, right? You want to help sons heal father wounds? You do that. You
Mm.
have that conversation in real time,
Mm.
right? And you feel the feels and you let dad feel the feels real time because that's real, right? And that's what heals, right? That's what really heals. And you can do that. You couldn't do that. You couldn't have done that where you were, but you can do that now.
Yeah.
Right. Um, that's a perfect example of um, getting laid off. And then how the choices that I make. Oh, I've always had this idea, this dream, which clearly, if you have a repetitive, any of us have a repetitive dream or fantasy about doing X, and it's still with us over time, that is the muse like knocking on your door hard to get you to be the channel for this thing that wants to manifest itself. And if you don't do it, it's going to find somebody else to manifest itself through. Authors talk about this all the time. They get ideas for books, they don't do it. And somebody they know writes a book that's that idea, but they never told them that idea, right? I've heard this story, and in fact, I have heard this story between two authors who know each other and two women who were at a party and they kissed just out of fun. It was exciting. It was a beautiful thing. They were in the flow and they kissed each other. This author had an idea for a story of a book. She never told this person about the story at all, but this person wrote the exact story. And they now say when they kissed, that's when the idea left her and went to the other one because the first one wasn't doing anything with it. So these things, these dreams, these hopes, these things that want to be made manifest in the material world are looking. Michael Jackson talked about it in his relationship with Prince. Michael was interviewed and he said, I have to write down these songs and these melodies and these things come to me. They come to me 24/7. I have to write them down quick because he says, if I don't, Prince will. So
Wow.
the ideas are out there. They're spinning. And the ones that are knocking on us are going, you're the one. You're the one they're like children. You're the one to bring me, to birth me into reality.
Yes.
And if we don't do it, somebody else will. It will find a way to become made manifest in reality. And this is pretty esoteric, but this is what you did. Somebody
It
took the
is.
shackles off. Initially, you probably had one narrative. I'm redundant. I got made redundant. I'm not needed. I'm not wanted. I'm not seen. I'm not important. I'm whatever. But then quickly shifting that narrative. Well, I did always have this idea, and there's this thing that kind of wanted it. I probably should go get the thing. Okay, I'm going to go get the thing. So now all of a sudden I have a new resource, i.e., I went into the cave. I slayed a dragon, which was my story about being redundant. And now what do I have there for me? I have gold and I have a virgin. I have infinite possibility and I have newness and freshness and a new way of being in the world. I have these two things now. So then what are those? Oh, well, those are equipment. I buy equipment. Then as a result of buying equipment, the universe sends a phone call to go, hey, you should maybe consider X. Oh, right. I should call that bro. Right. Maybe that's a good idea. I should do that. Right. Which then what you did with it though, your first day you went out and you started walking and recording. Well, I don't really know what I'm doing. Right. A part of you doesn't know what you're doing, but the muse sure does. The muse says, go outside and start talking about what's going on inside and what that experience about being a human is. And that sets a set of dominoes, which then leads to this conversation, right? And whatever conversation you're going to have next, which I hope I tune in and I see you having a conversation real time with Dad. What's your father's name, by the way?
Rüdiger. It's a very
Beautiful. Beautiful.
very
So then I
hard
tune in
German
and
name.
I see you having a conversation with dad. And I might not speak German, but all I have to do is watch your faces and listen to how, watch and listen to how the conversation's unfolding. And that conversation might change my life. And that conversation might change the dynamic between sons and fathers right now in Germany, and what they carry and what they don't carry, and what they choose to carry and not carry, and what they take responsibility for and what they don't take responsibility for, right? That could lead to a whole thing. Like, yeah, I'll even pass this to you as well. So as a result, I was out there, I don't know, 7, 8, 9 times doing facilitation trainings for men in Germany. And what kept bubbling up, what I was really excited about, was coming out and doing work specifically on World War II trauma,
Mm.
generational trauma, what you men are carrying, because you're carrying something that's not yours. But the first step is to now take responsibility for it. I didn't create it. I didn't want it, but it's here. So I'm responsible for what I do with it. I'm responsible for what I make it mean. And I'm responsible for me being the one holding it. And I am responsible to then either continue to hold it or put it down or transmute it in some way, to be an alchemist and change what I do with it. I'm responsible for that. So maybe this conversation with your father, is your grandfather still alive? No. Okay. So we can't have that conversation, but we can have a conversation with dad.
Yeah.
And it might just be a conversation between a son and a father, but it might be a conversation between the generations. It might be a conversation with the ancestors, because the ancestors are still alive in your dad, and the ancestors are still alive in you and me. Our ancestors speak through us. Okay? That's how they stay here. Their words are resonating through us. That's how they're still here. So your ancestors still have a voice and they still want to be heard, as do mine. So maybe that's a conversation, right? That
And Vince,
leads to not only
the
your
fact
healing,
that
but your father's healing and your ancestors' healing. This is family constellation work. As you know, when we do that work, I believe not only does it heal here, and I saw it heal my son and his mother and go into his family, but I believe it also settles and
right.
does some healing back. I mean,
Yes.
that's the whole philosophy in the family constellation work. We bring a settledness to our ancestors that wasn't there before. So how could this not do that by having that conversation? How could it not affect you, your unborn children, your father's unborn grandchildren? And how could it not affect your grandfather and your great grandfather and your great 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 grandfather and all the matriarchal part of your family as well? And bring a settledness to them by settling right here, right now.
It's only fear, fear of my personal little ego that keeps me from, or kept me from having that conversation
Yeah.
already.
Yeah, because what
But
what
hell
would you
yeah,
have
I'm
to live?
ready.
What would you have to give up? The little part of us has a narrative. My 0 to 7 to 10 to 12-year-old has a story of what happened and a story of the world. Well, that part of me has to die. This is the Peter Pan syndrome. I get to be a boy forever and live on Neverland and not take responsibility for anything. Well, what has to happen is that little part of you has to die. That little part of you has to give up that story, give up being right, give up being better than dad, has to get humbled
Yeah.
and come to a human place. And it has to grow the fuck up.
Yeah.
And that part of me now has to be put to bed and go, Dad, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for holding you in this place. I'm sorry that I never told you how mad I was. I'm sorry for those explosions. I'm sorry for belittling you. I'm sorry for all the shit that I did to you, because guess what? I didn't understand. I didn't even try to understand. I'm sorry that I didn't try to understand you. I'm sorry that I had all these stories that I made up about you. I'm sorry. I didn't do it on purpose. I just did it. And I'm sorry for that. I'm sorry I blamed you. I'm sorry for all of it. And with that, I'm here right now because I want to get you. I want to understand you. Here's a tool that we use in facilitation work. It's called mindful interruption. You can use this tool anywhere, any place. We set the frame up. The context for it usually is if somebody's kind of running on and they're just kind of babbling. They're not really here, but they're just like going on and on and on and on and on and on with trigger. Or the tool is you pause, you say their name, Maxie, Maxie, trying to shift them from wherever they are to here. And I'm looking at them again, and that left eye connecting from the left eye to the heart to the little one. I say, Maxie, I really want to hear you. I really want to get what you're saying. And it would help me if we slowed down a little bit. I'm going to shift this a little bit for the context of your father. Tell me your dad's name again one more time.
Rüdiger.
Rudiger. Rudiger. What do you call him? You call him Dad? You call him Rudiger? What do you call him? Papa? What do you call him?
Papa, yeah.
Papa. Okay. So you pause and you go, Papa, I really want to get you. I really want to hear you. I really want to understand what you're saying. And it would help me if we could slow down a little bit. And would it be okay that if once I get a little bit too much and I can't repeat it back to you, would it be okay if I held up my hand and we paused so that I can take a breath and then we can keep going? But you could literally just use that very first part. Papa, I really want to hear you. I really want to understand what you're saying. Because that's never happened to him in his life. Ever. It's never happened to you in your life. No one's ever looked at you and said, Maxie, Maxie, I really want to hear you. I really want to understand what you're saying. What happens? The 2, the 3, the 5, the 7, the 10-year-old inside of us who has been longing to be seen, heard, and understood, all of a sudden goes, what? There's somebody on the planet that wants to see me, hear me, and understand me? I've been talking all this time in my life, everywhere I go, yelling, screaming, getting quiet, getting loud, whatever, for somebody to see me, hear me, and understand me. And now somebody sitting across from me is actually setting the table for that, is actually said, Maxie, I really want to see you. I really want to hear you. I really want to understand what you're saying. This is why that whole line in oh God, what is it? Avatar is like whenever all over the world. I see you. That's why that landed. Because nobody before ever fucking said that. Because we all want to be seen. Your father wants to be seen. He wants to be heard, and he wants to be understood.
Yeah.
Without blame, without judgment, without all that shit that you put on him. Or that he put on himself. You may have never said those words to him, but he could see it in your eye, he could see it in your body language, he could see it in your behavior. You judged him for how he was. Which he did with his dad. Which his dad did with his dad.
Yeah.
So you can put a stop to this. This is Family Constellation Work Live, right here, right now, in the real world. You can look at him and say, Papa. Even better, you could look at it and say, Papa, I never took the time to understand you. I never took the time to see you. I never took the time to hear you. Would it be okay if we sat down and we talked? And would it even be better if you're okay? Would it be better? Would it be okay if I recorded it? Because I want to remember. I want to be able to go back and capture this when you're gone. Now that's a story you're telling there, but you're setting him up to do the podcast, right? That he doesn't need to know that you're going to share this with the rest of the world because that'll freak him out. Okay? All
Yeah.
right. You can ask him that afterward. But the setup is, Papa, I never saw you. I blamed you, but I want to see you. I want to hear you. I want you to tell me your story. Can we sit down and do that? So you invite him over and you set him up and you do it. And you ask him the hard questions. What was it like growing up for you? What was it like growing up where you grew up? Tell me about Grandpa. What was he like? And you encourage him to be in the feels, the feelings. It's okay.
Yeah.
I know we Germans don't cry, Dad. It's okay to cry. You cry first, in fact, Maxie. You start crying first, right? Even if you can't, you do it first. That'll create the space for him to feel his feeling. It'll be okay. And you just ride those waves, right? Ride the waves as long as it takes. And it may take 1 or 2 or 5 or 10 interviews to put together something. But you just record and you ask the questions, because the more you understand him, the more you're going to start to understand you and why you are the way you are and how you are the way you are and how you see the world the way you see the world and why you react to the things, some things the way you do, and why you don't react to some things you don't. Like your whole matrix of who you are and how you are will start to crystallize. This is why our family has this whole money thing, because it goes back to grandpa or great grandpa or great grandpa in the 18th Depression, who lived through 2 world wars, right? That we were intimately involved in. This is why
Yeah.
we are the way we are. This is why the story is there. Oh, it's not me. This is our family lineage. This is one of the rocks I carry. Okay, what am I going to do with this rock? Oh, well, I can see now I'm starting to create this thing and I'm doing this thing. This is my way of putting that rock down for our family and creating a new way of being for our family. But all of those parts that you don't know yet, and the parts that create the fear for you, and the parts that are all those unseen parts that you start to get a glimpse of in the family constellation work, that's going to come crystal clear when you sit either with or across from your dad and you ask these questions and you shut up and you let him talk. You let him, he's going to be the one with the color crayons filling in the color, all those colors that you don't even know that are there. You've only been able to color in a small part of the picture. He's got the rest. About him, about his family, about his mother and father, and about you, why you're the way you are. It's all going to come crystal clear. This is why our forefathers were storytellers. This is why we sat around the fire going back multiple generations and we told stories. We told those stories to know who we are as a people, where we came from, why we're here in this place and time. And those stories fascinated the little ones so that they could know where they are going. This is why storytelling is so critical. This is why in today's world, how we started this thing, if I can start my day in a place of gratitude, if I can find gratitude in the fact that there's no hot water for the next 4 hours at the gym, I get to tell a particular story about myself and the world. I get to choose what narrative I tell. Yeah, I'm German. Have you tried some of our great beer? Have you tried some of our great food? Come to Germany. It's beautiful. It's so green. Have you seen some of the castles? Oh my God, we got to go to the Black Forest. I got to take you to the Black Forest. It's amazing. Germany's awesome. I could tell that story. Let me tell
Yep.
you about some of the technology we're bringing into the world right now. Our cars, holy shit. Have you ever driven a German car? Oh,
Yeah.
right? It's beautiful. It's so
Still pretty
green. The
good.
trees. Germany is amazing. I could tell that story.
And it's like you say, it's true as
And
well,
it's
you
true.
know?
It's as true as any other story. So we get to choose what story we tell, right? And it's as true as anything else. So am I going to tell the story of fear and death? That story is important because, yeah, it's afraid. There's a reason why the knight had to put on armor, have the sword, have the spear, and have the light to go into the cave because it's fucking terrifying. Because I don't know what's in there. I've been told it's a dragon, but this is Harry Potter going underneath the school
Mm.
to fight the snake, right? This is that. I don't know what's there. It's scary. It's bigger than me. It could kill me. Yes, sitting across from your father could kill you. No question. It could kill the little one in you that's still hanging on to this whole story of how the world works and how it should be and who he should have been. And who, more importantly, who he thinks you should have been. That part of
Mm.
you has to die. That part of you has to turn and face that dragon with the knife, with the sword, with the shield, but more importantly, with the courage to feel the fear, wet yourself, and go in anyway,
Yeah.
so that that part of you can die. And a new part of you can come out with the gold and the resources and the virgin, the new possibility. You get the win. You get the new life. You get the new story. But then, even what's more important, this is why I want you to do it live with your dad. The whole hero's journey, leave what I know, go into the darkness, face the fear, face the dragon, the monster, whatever that is that lies within me, that lies out
The
there,
shadow. Yeah.
global warming, the shadow, all of that stuff. Face that, fight it myself, overcome, learn something new about myself. Oh, I can face shit and overcome it. But the last part, which is the most important part, I come back to the village and I tell the story. That's the most important part. The most important part isn't going off slaying the dragon and then leaving. The most important part is coming
Mm.
back and telling the story of this is why I told those stories to Adam. This is why I tell my stories when we were at Convergence this last year, and I told the stories of me overcoming my depression and overcoming me sitting on the ground with a gun to my head and wanting to
Yeah.
check out because things are fucked and it's awful. My overcoming that, I had so many people coming to me afterwards going, wow, I've dealt with depression. I've dealt with suicidal ideations for all this time. I'm so glad to hear that, like, there is another side. Yes, there's another side to it. You can get to the other side. This is what's so important about you having this conversation with Dad. So both of you, it's not just your transformation. Your father's probably never told the story. Your father has never been able to face it. This is where Pinocchio comes from. And there's two Disney stories where the little one helps dad, rescues dad from the belly of the whale. This is you
Mm.
saving your dad from his whale. You think you want to be respected by your father and seen and heard by your father? You know what's more important is that your father gets seen and heard and respected by you. He's
Absolutely.
hungry for that. Why? Because he never got it from his dad. So he's looking to you to give you the thing that he never got from his dad. So if you want what you want from your dad, you first have to give it to him.
Yeah.
You have to hand him the sword and say, Dad, I've been slaying some fucking dragons on my own, and I'm finally ready to give you the love, the respect, the honor that you deserve. Thank you for keeping me alive. Thank you for
Absolutely.
bringing me into this world. Thank you for feeding me and sheltering me and giving me this whole possibility to have this place. This dinner that I'm offering you tonight, Dad, is the beginning of a long line of dinners and thank yous that I owe you for bringing me into the world, for keeping me alive, for taking care of me.
Yep.
Because I owe you all of this,
Yep.
all of it. Everything here I owe to you, Dad. Thank you. You made me who I am. Thank you.
Absolutely.
So
It's so easy to
you hit
look
the
into the world and wanting to change everything and everyone and whatnot. Like when you think you're enlightened, spend a weekend with your family. I mean, somebody
that's
told me that
exactly right.
once, and it's
That's
really
Wayne
like,
Dyer.
yeah,
Either Wayne Dyer or Ram Dass, one of those talked about that, going, look, I was this spiritual guy and I thought I had all my shit together. You really want to have your shit together? Go home for Thanksgiving or go home for Christmas. You
Absolutely.
don't. But if you walk in the door, not with presence, physical, your dad, I bought you this coffee mug. No, you walked in the door with presence. Dad,
Mm.
thank you. Mom, thank you.
Mm.
What can I do to be in service this weekend, tonight? What can I do to give just a little bit back? No, Mom, you're not doing the dishes. I'm going to finish cooking the dinner, Mom. Let me do that for you. Daddy, let me get your slippers. I'm bringing you some coffee. You want a beer? I'll get you a beer. What do you need? I'm going to be in service to give back a little bit rather than constantly being the one taking from you for the last 10, 20, 30, 40 fucking years. What can I do to show up with presence and love you? Then, guess what? You're going to see a whole different person looking back at you. Mom and dad will change in a blink of an eye if I change.
Again,
I'm a grown up.
responsibility. It's me.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Start,
I see that.
starts with us. Yeah. And we can
I,
do that. And we can be okay and nurture the little part of us that needs to let go, the little part of us that has to die, that was right, who didn't get his needs met, who judged the fuck out of mom and dad. That little part needs to die. If we're really going to grow up, if we're really going to mature, if we're really going to take responsibility and who we could be in the world, that part of us has to die. We need to slay that dragon. Okay?
yeah,
We
and I
don't have
mean,
to slay
like
the
this is
dragon
all.
alone.
Yeah, and this is all recorded, so I'm being held accountable. You know, I can put I can put like the money where my mouth is, and yeah, because you know, like I'm always like big on having those conversations and stuff, and like I'm undergoing that change and that transformation, and a lot of stuff is also made by myself. Fighting in the cave and fighting the dragon. I'm doing that. But yes, part of it is that real like face to face, and yeah. So no, no
Well,
turning
you're going to
back
be doing
now. Yeah.
if you accept the challenge that I laid down for you, you're going to get to have the conversation that I never had with my father. It was too late. He was dead. Never got to have that talk. And you're going to have the opportunity, just like that song, like in the Mechanics, in the living years. That whole song is about not having the conversation when he was alive,
Hmm.
when he was here, and the regret that we didn't have those conversations, right? But you have an opportunity right here, right now, while he's still here, to have these deep, powerful, meaningful conversations. And those will inspire other men, other women to have those deep, powerful, meaningful conversations with their parents. I just had a friend. She went down to Argentina to meet with her grandmother, great grandmother, I can't remember which. Her mother, her daughter, and other family members went down. I think it's grandma. Grandma's from Argentina, and that whole family. She just went down there and was down there for like two weeks. And I said to her, she was telling me about this. I said, here's the opportunity. Here's the opportunity for healing. This relationship that you said you wanted with your mom, this is the opportunity to have that because now you're going to go down and be there with mom and grandma, and your daughter is going to be there. So 4 generations, this
Mm.
lineage, your family are going to be together in the same place at the same time in your homeland, in the place of your ancestors. You get to visit the graves, the more generations all together.
Yeah.
So now, in this moment, you could, if you wanted, start to see your mother in a different way. Instead of being the needy little one,
Yeah.
mom, you didn't give me this and you didn't say that. You remember the time you said this to me and all of that. You get to put all that shit down and you get to see your mom as a little girl now in the presence of her mother and how your mother grew up in the time and the place and the context and the culture. And maybe finally you could start to plant the seeds of that relationship that you always wanted if you choose to see her in that way. if you choose to set that up. And she sent me notes along while she was down there. It happened. She said, you were absolutely right. That's exactly what happened.
Mm.
But she took responsibility and she put down the little wounded little one, and she turned and she faced the dragon herself. She took the deep breath and she allowed that part of herself to be to die a little so that another part of herself could be reborn,
Mm.
which she said totally changed her mother. Her mother was completely different there, and so was her grandmother. So now all these 4 generations of women got to come together and do just what we do in family constellation work, but real, live, and reframe the whole family story. At least her version of the family story got changed. She got to let herself off the hook, which let her mother off the hook, which let her grandmother off the hook. And now they actually got to be women together.
Yeah.
And they played together as women,
Yeah.
not as mother, daughter, all this stuff, just women. With the youngest member of the group there, the youngest daughter, the lineage going forward was there with them while they had this transformation. Holy fucking shit.
Yeah.
Like mind boggling. Like
Abs-
talk about healing generational trauma. But I have to be the nexus for it. We have to choose. We have to be the one to put down that rock of I didn't, I wanted, I don't, I can't, it should have been, whatever that is. We have to be the one willing to put that down, which creates the space for now something new to come into that space, which could be, oh, it was, and it is, and we can, and they did.
Mm.
Wow. There's a
Yeah.
whole new story here I didn't know existed. And of course, it was always there, but because I was carrying this other thing, I didn't allow those new pages of the book to come in. Because I had already written in the book what I thought was real.
Exactly.
So there was no room for a new chapter. I had to rip those fucking pages out and burn those so that new pages of the story could come in.
Absolutely.
And it's all there. It's all there for all of us. Me too. My whole narrative with my dad, I had to throw those, I still have to tear those pages up still to this day that I wrote down. I got to burn those fucking things so that I can go, oh, wait, right. He walked with me up those hills, way up those mountains, and he taught me how to walk quietly. He taught me how to think. He taught me, he did all that stuff. That also was true. He spent all this time. He bought me my first skateboard. Oh, shit, that's right. He did that. He didn't know anything about skateboard, but he got me one. There's all these things that are also true. So I have to let go of that shit that doesn't serve me. I'm an adult now. I can let that go and then open to this muse, this other possibility that's also there.
Mm.
That's also true. That's been true all along. It's all been there. But I kept it away because I had a story. I had a story that there's no hot water. No, the pipes are there. There's hot water there. I'm telling the story there's no hot water. And I'm mad about it. I'm pissed. I'm angry. I didn't get what I wanted. I didn't get my hot water. Hot water's fucking there. If you stand here long enough, the hot water will come. And I could stand here being mad and angry and blaming those people, or I could stand here and have conversations with cool folks and drink some coffee and hang out, drink some water, maybe do a little bit more working out, maybe go over there and get on the thing. And if I wait long enough and I create this beautiful synergy around me, the hot water will come.
Yeah.
Because thank God there are men with tools and knowledge that know how to fix the hot water pipe. Thank God there's those guys around, men and women who know how to do that shit.
But I love the metaphor. Let's use this sort of let's use that as a mantra. The hot water will come. It will come, in
And
all of our
always been
lives. Yeah.
It's always been there. This muse of yours that said create the podcast, it was floating there the whole time, like Tinkerbell. The idea is resonating around you the whole time, but no, I got to do this, and I got this, and I got my job, and I got this. And like You're doing everything we can. Carl Jung talked about, he said, all of us walk around in shoes that are too small for us. And what he was talking about was our lives are so much bigger and can be so much more amazing. But we're all walking around with these stories and these beliefs in these shoes that are too small and too tight. They
I
don't fit
love
us.
that. I love that. Yeah, I love
The
that.
life you lived in this other company when you were doing that work was too small. It was too tight. It could not hold the totality of who you are and what you can be and bring in this world.
Absolutely. And now sitting here across from you and having those conversations is the biggest slap in my face and wake up call I've ever got in my life. Let me tell you this. And it keeps happening and it keeps evolving. And it's just like, yeah,
Man,
yeah, you have to die to be reborn is something that came for me while you were
yes.
talking. And that's the Bible. And
And
it's
I'm
true.
going to pull
Yeah.
that apart a little bit because a part of me has to die, not all of it. When I say I have to die or I have to do this, I'm depressed, I'm sad, I'm lonely. That's all of it, right? That's all of me. And it's really hard to overcome all of it. But if I parse those parts of things, this is family constellation work. This is voice dialogue, and I forget the guy's name that came up with another version of this. But we in this world we call it parts work. A part of me has to die. A
Yeah.
part of me that tells this
Yeah.
particular
Yeah.
story has to die. So if I get that in my mind, my friend, oh, well, I could just like throw in a penny in a wishing well, right? I can give up a penny. I can make that wish. Do I throw all of me in the well, or can I just throw a penny in the well?
Yeah.
Right. So especially if I'm letting go of something, a part of me can let go of something, but there's still a part of me here that's alive and well and can learn and do something. Oh, I can do that for sure.
Hmm.
That's an easier story to tell, and that's an easier one to make manifest. Even though truly, all of me has to go in the cave. All of me has to face the fucking dragon. But if I say that, well, then there's that fear can be overwhelming. But if I say a part of me, my hero, my warrior, my challenger, my adventurer, he's got to go in the cave. Now, my lover and my magician, my king, my philanthropist, or the other parts of myself might still be outside of the cave safe and well. But at least the warrior's going in there to face the dragon. He can do that. Okay, well then, yeah, maybe I can pull that off. So that's a trick. That's a mind game. That's a mental jujitsu for all of you who have challenges in your life, things you need to face, stories you need to rewrite, conversations with our parents that we need to have, or grandparents, the hard conversation with the boss. If I can do, or the thing I need to face health wise, or dealing with rent, or dealing with whatever the challenges, if I can parse apart, a part of me has to, a part of me needs to, a part of me has these feelings, especially like dealing with depression or negative emotions. A part of me is angry. A part of me is sad. A part of me is scared. I can make that distinction and then have the witness from the
Mm.
Buddhist perspective, sitting
Absolutely.
back
Yeah.
and watching it,
Yes.
watching the
Yes.
emotion. Oh, well, it's not me that's depressed. It's not me that's angry. It's not me that fucking wants everything to change. A part of me does. Part of me needs to shift. A part of me needs to die. If I can get that mental jujitsu going, oh, okay, well, yeah, I think I could do that. A part of me will be scared to have the conversation with dad, but another part of me is excited at the new possibilities, what could come. So when you have a conversation with dad, it's not you, it's 5-year-old you and 7-year-old you and 12-year-old you and 15-year-old you and 30-year-old you and 40-year-old you and 50-year-old you and 70-year-old you that is so glad that you had and recorded that conversation that you can now go back and re-review. And the father in you, you dad, is really glad that he had that conversation with dad. And guess who's even more happy? Your son and your son's son, who
Mm.
has now this thing,
Mm.
this time capsule, right? So all of those parts of you and your unborn children are sitting at that microphone having that conversation with your dad, not just the part of you that's afraid, that's attached, that's scared. It's all your future selves and your sons and your grandsons and great grandsons and daughters' future self.
Yeah.
That's who's having the conversation with dad. Okay. And your beautiful partner in the background, because when she sees and hears that conversation, she's going to have to reframe how she thinks about her dad and her grandfather and her great grandfather.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It affects the whole, as you know, it affects the whole family system, right? All of you is sitting at that mic. And maybe that's even another conversation. She gets to interview him and she gets to go, tell me what it was like growing up for you. Tell me about Maxie when he was a boy. Not you
Mm.
having that conversation, but her having that conversation so that she gets to now see and hear from your, not your story of your dad, but your dad's story of himself and what it was like for him to be with grandpa and what it was like for him to raise you, because you might have been a son of a bitch to raise, but you don't know that because you weren't cognizant of your son of a bitchness when you were a little one. You might have not slept for a fucking 3 months. So no wonder he was cranky and mom and dad was cranky, because maybe you had colic as a little baby and they never told you that stuff, how hard it was to raise you and keep you going. But if she asked those questions, he might tell that story so that now she sees dad differently, because she probably hasn't had this conversation with her dad, but she could have the conversation with your dad because it's safer. So now she has a new relationship with dad, the archetype. She now also has information about you and why you are the way you are. She can look at you differently now. Oh, that's why Maxie's that way. I always had a suspicion he was this way, but now I see it clearly in dad. That's why it's not Maxie, it's the family. It's the way he was raised. Not that Maxie's fucked up and an asshole. It's that, oh, the family dynamic is this way. Oh, that's interesting. And your dad's going to tell her things that he won't tell you. He can't, but he could tell her.
Yeah.
So that,
No,
how does
it
that
makes,
change?
yeah, it makes
That
total
completely
sense.
changes. That changes your dynamic with her. That changes her dynamic with men. That changes her dynamic with dad, the archetype, which may change her whole dynamic with her father and her father's father, right? So this little nexus moment in time that you could create not only has your whole family constellation rearranging how it is in the universe, but of course it's going to have a completely huge effect on hers and how she views and how her whole family lineage comes out, which then, of course, if you two choose, which I hope you do, to have offspring, how do you think that's going to affect your children and your children's children and your children's children?
No, absolutely. I mean, big time.
Right?
I mean, I'm
Huge.
just like, yeah, there's work to do. And I'm willing and able to do it. And wow, I'm just, yeah, I'm very grateful. um, the whole time, yes, absolutely. The whole time while we are talking, and yeah, also for my partner who is, you know, holding space for me while I'm doing my recording here, and she cannot,
Yeah.
sit there on the sofa. But you gotta make those sacrifices. But yeah, so yeah, I guess like because you were talking about maybe like you're coming to Germany, so I would love to welcome you in this beautiful home, right
Oh.
there on those couch, and have a conversation in person,
That'd be lovely. Thank you.
and do this again, because on the right here I'm having a look at my notes,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
there's a lot of
Time.
stuff.
Yeah,
There's a
yeah.
lot of stuff I I would love to talk to you about. Oh yes, and also until then, I'll be able to share, and come back
Sure.
to the village and see what I found in the cave.
Right.
Because yeah, I'm convinced, willing, and able, and I'll be going in.
Good,
Absolutely.
good.
Yeah.
We have to know that's the only thing that heals. If we don't look at ourselves, if we don't look at who we are, one of my great teachers at the moment is Jordan Peterson, and he talks about this often, how he spent, for some reason, he was utterly fascinated by Marxist belief and ideology, and he was fascinated by the First World War and the Second World War and all the ramifications that came out of that, all the darkness and all the ugliness. And what he had to get to, which we all have to get to, because all of us want to believe that we would do the right thing and the moral thing when the time came. When shit got real, we
Mm.
would somehow do the right thing. None of us would be a Nazi guard in a concentration camp. None of us would do that. Right. He had to look at himself and go, I'm the guard. I'm the one turning the gas valve. I'm the one doing that. If I can't look, and this all comes from Jungian, a little bit from Freud, but most from Jung. If I can't see my shadow, i.e., the parts of myself that I hide, repress, and deny,
No. Yeah.
if I can't see that within me, then that means it's back there. It's quote unquote in shadow. The things I hide, repress, and deny. If they're back there where I can't see them, then they are unconsciously at times driving my bus, i.e., in charge of my conscious world, i.e., yelling and screaming at the poor person at the counter because the water's not on. Okay? If I can't see the darkness in my soul, I also can't see the light. And shadow isn't just the bad things, the horrible things. Shadow is also the fact that my shoes are too small. Shadow is I'm not playing big enough in the world. There's things that I could do and be that I'm afraid of or I'm putting back there because of whatever stories I've told myself. So for me to be that person that I was born to be, for me to bring my gifts fully into the world, I also have to look at the parts of myself that keep me from doing that. My fears, my doubts, my stories, my victimhood, and my judgments of others. Oh, I would never say or do those things. I would never, i.e., I would never be that asshole.
Yeah.
No, we are all that asshole. We are all the Auschwitz guard. We are all the one turning the gas valve. Oh, I would never do that. Really? You'd never judge or do anything awful to anybody else? Really? I've heard people saying that kind of stuff in circles. And then I go, well, hopefully I have with me. Then I grab a mirror and I say, what about this person? How many times have you put this person in the chamber? How many times have you squashed this person's hopes and dreams? I.e., you.
Yeah.
You've done that to you over and over and over. Okay? So part of me learning the myths, learning the stories, is to give myself permission to also go into that cave and see myself. The dragon is out there. The dragon represents all the evil and horror in the world. But the dragon, all of that also lives inside of me. All the evil and horror in the world is in here. And yeah, I might not quote unquote do it out there, but I sure as hell do it to me.
Mm.
And if I don't know that I do it to me, if I don't have control of it, then it comes out sideways and it comes out to my beloved. It comes out to my friends. It comes out to the people at the store. It comes out in road rage. It comes out in all the ways sideways rather than direct. This is
Yes.
why we have to become a warrior. This is why Jordan talks about you better be dangerous. You better know how to wield your sword because then you know when to keep it scabbard and you know when to take it out. And more than that, you know how to use it so that you don't cut people unnecessarily. You cut with precision. You create your boundaries clearly. It doesn't come out sideways being snotty with your girlfriend because she left socks in the living room or because she didn't do the thing she didn't make the bed or she didn't do the one thing that you said. So your snarky little ass comments come out sideways. That's an unhealed warrior. That's a little boy's talking.
Mm.
So I want to bring all these parts of myself to bear. I want to bring the victim, the perpetrator. I want to bring the hero. I want to bring all those parts of me right here, right now, so that they're 100% present. That alignment that I talked about, intention versus impact. I want these things to be in perfect alignment so that you get to see and know all of me. More importantly, I get to see and know all of me. I'm not in denial that I could not be the guy turning the valve or hurting them into the boxcars. Push comes to shove and my family's on the line and they're starving, you bet I'm picking up the gun and I'm hurting people in the car, because our fathers and forefathers did what they had to do to survive. They did the most unspeakable, horrible things they had to survive.
Mm.
Why? So that you and I could sit right here and have this conversation. Why? So that some men can go and fix hot water pipes so that people can take a warm shower in peace, in freedom, in the gym. So that some people could have a nice car and drive a car. They did
Absolutely.
unspeakable things so that we could be here in peace, which means there's a part of me inside of me that can do unspeakable things. And the only way I can heal that and be here present with you is to own it, to take responsibility for it, to be accountable to it, and to talk about it. Which means I have to have the hard conversations with myself. I have to have the hard conversations with my dad. And through him, through your dad, have the hard conversation with grandpa. So dad, why do you think, did he ever talk about it? Did he ever talk about why he did what he did? Did he ever talk about the pain that he had his whole life with the shrapnel still in his body? Did he ever discuss it? Or did you just see how he lived with it? Like, did he ever in his, maybe when in his drunken state, when he was really, his guard was really down and he was really angry, did it come out? Did he talk about his dad? Did you ever hear him talk about his dad? Right? So that we can learn and I can have my perpetrator right here, sitting right next to me, so I can keep an eye on that son of a bitch.
Absolutely.
That's the whole point of shadow work. It ain't back there in the darkness. He or she is sitting right here. So my hero is right here, right? And my little boy is right here, and my victim is right here, and the part of me that projects that I'm godlike, my God complex is right here, right in front, so I can keep an eye on that bastard because he likes to come up. But hey, I got all of them right here, and I don't disown any of them. I am that son of a bitch. I am the guard. I am the one turning the valve. I'm also Schindler. I'm also saving as many fucking humans as I possibly can. I'm also trying to save people. And I am saving people. I'm also that guy. He's also here too, right? I'm also the one making the difference. I'm also the one taking responsibility. I'm also the one showing up in service. That is also true. That story's true too. It's not just one narrative. It's not just white man, perpetrator, colonizer, ruining everything. It's also white man, like solving world problems, creating safe space, protecting women and children. It's also all the good parts of that. It ain't just one story. There's not just one story to tell.
No.
For all of us, there is a big, beautiful, amazing story to tell about how amazing the world is right now. Even with the problems that have always been there since the beginning of time. There used to be volcanoes and gases, and like it was a really rough place to live, and it was cold as shelf. There was the ice sheet, and there was like the Europeans had a hard time. That's why they had to move, but they also survived. There's a survival story, a thing that humans can overcome adversity. We can do it every single day, every single moment. We're such an adaptable species. Holy crap. And world hunger and world poverty has gone down. There are more people, there are less people living on the planet than have been in history. There's that story too. And the more people get lifted out of poverty, the better the world is, the better we are. The more abundant all of us are, the safer and the more, less war, less hunger, less starvation, less conflict there is in the world. We get to tell that story because that's what's also happening right now. It's not just all doom and gloom.
No, no.
So we, so anyway,
Yeah,
um,
we write our own story, and
yes,
yeah, we take responsibility every day. We walk with grace.
yes,
We are grateful, and
yes.
we own our shit.
Owner shit.
That's
And like Ricky says, when he goes to Ricky Gervais, go pet dogs, man. When you go on a walk, go pet people dog. Like, be fucking grateful. When a cat comes along your path, bend over and pet that cat. When somebody walks by, smile at them. I don't know what journeys do in the winter. Maybe everybody's grumpy, but they could look at each other and smile. I know people in New York after 9/11, they were all friendly to each other all of a sudden. Now I
they
think they're all
saw
grumpy
each other.
again,
Yeah.
but all of a sudden they saw each other. They saw the pain and the hurt in all of us. All of us are walking around with a story of pain and hurt and anguish. None of us are free from that. So yeah, we get to choose. We could, like you said, walk in grace every day. We can smile. We can be friendly. We can be kind. We can be courteous. We can say, "Oh, I'm sorry." We can be humble, right? We can be courteous. We can be kind. We can do that because I don't know what you're going through, bro. But I know, even with a smile on your face, behind that is a wounded little boy, is a wounded little girl,
Yeah.
somebody who's scared, walking in this world. You don't know what's going on either. We're all putting on this brave face that we know what's happening. Nobody knows what's happening. Nobody knows why we're here. Nobody knows what's going to happen tomorrow. We're all scared and terrified inside. So we also could be kind, compassionate, and
No,
loving, and
absolutely.
fiercely loving,
So
right?
yeah, I was
Yeah.
as we're talking, I'm just like, wow, how how do we wrap this up? How
Yeah.
can we get the gist? And
Sure.
I heard a and I would love that. I think this would be awesome because I heard you share so little random acts of kindness as you described it.
You did.
You're sharing a little story, and to all the German listeners out there, just replace Trader Joe's with Aldi
Yeah.
or Lidl or something,
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
the
Go into
story
all these. Yeah. Yeah.
will make just as
Yeah.
much sense. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I would love for you to maybe share that sort of
Sure.
little
Sure.
story.
Yeah. It's one of my practices. So,
Yeah.
and I'll use Aldi's because I know you guys have. So the next time you go into Aldi, you're going to do your shopping. You're going to get your stuff, and you're going to go to the checkout counter. Now, hopefully, you don't go to the self checkout. You go to the one where there's the person, usually a woman, it could be a man, but usually more often than that, it's a woman checking you out, taking your groceries, scanning them. While you're there, you're going to pause and you're going to look at the name tag because they almost always have a name tag. And if they don't have a name tag, you look at them and you say, "Hi, how are you? What's your name?" Ask them their name. And then we'll just say, for the sake of moment right now, because poor ladies are getting a hard time in America, Karen. Maybe their name is Karen. And you're going to say, "Hey, Karen, how are you? How's your day?" So I say their name because at Trader Joe's they have a thing, but hopefully at Aldi's they have a thing, the name tag. You're going to say their name and they're checking out and you're having a nice conversation and you're sincere. You ask them, "How are you? How's your day going?" "Oh, wow." And you mirror back. "Well, I hear you're having blah blah day, or you're having a good day, or a little challenge, or you just got to work, you're just starting your shift, or maybe like the other day I was in the store, the person was just finishing their shift and they were really excited. Like I was the last customer, and then they were getting
Mm.
ready to get off work, so they were really stoked. They're like, "Oh, it's been a long day. I'm finally getting off work. Awesome. Bet that feels great. Yeah, it feels great. Awesome." So then you're going to ask them, what's their favorite Aldi's treat? Is it a sweet, whatever? What is your favorite thing here at Aldi? Okay. And who knows what they're going to say? Usually at Trader Joe's, where we're at, they've got all kinds of pastries and chocolates, and like there's a ton of treaty things, dessert things. At Aldi's, it's a general store, grocery store. So who knows? Who knows what they're going to say? But they might go, "Well, gee, I don't know." But so you just kind of keep asking questions. What's your favorite thing? What's the thing that you're into right now? Keep reframing the question until they go, Oh, well, like I had one guy goes, well, I really like these pork belly crisp things. I don't know what the hell they were. I know I would have never ate it, but he was really into it. Whatever the hell it was, he was into it. So I'm like, okay, so what is that? Where would I get that? You know, so they'll either tell me where to get it or they'll send somebody to go get the thing. Go get the thing, whatever it is they like. Bring it in. One guy wanted a bottle of whiskey. One person was like, oh, I really like these steak things. Buy it. I don't care how much it costs. Buy it. Take a deep breath, swallow, buy it. So they come, they bring the thing, they ring it up. Now you keep an eye on that thing because they're bagging things. And maybe you even grab it and you just set it to the side. They bag everything up, get it in your cart. Thank you so much, Karen. You have a great day. And then you reach down and you hand them that thing that they wanted. And you smile and you walk out the store.
Mm.
Now, no one has ever done that to them before or for them before. Okay? I do this every single time I go into the store. And if there's two people working there, a person checking and a person bagging, I do it for both. Okay?
Right.
Way for me to say thank you. And it changes them. It changes their mind frame. I see it. And then one time, now I don't do this for anything other than that. I see their smile and I walk out the door. I don't wait for anything. I just go. One time I did that for these two young ladies. They asked me what my favorite thing was before I left. And I told them. I was at my car, loading my groceries in my car. She came running up with all this joy, huge smile on her face, and handed me the thing that I liked. And then she smiled, and then she ran back in the store.
That's awesome.
The ripple effects of that, they were nicer to every single customer that came to them after that, regardless of what their day was like, regardless of what was going on in their home life. From that point forward, they were nicer to every customer. And I was nicer to everybody too when I left because I felt good. Wayne Dyer talked about this. They've done studies. When one person does an act of kindness for somebody else, both of those people's metabolism and metabolic makeup changes. Their DNA and RNA rearranges. They're literally different. But what's most important, because I've also seen this in the store, I've seen people watching me doing this, and they change. The witness changes too. So if you witness an act of kindness, you change. So I'm doing something, I'm changing, I'm taking a moment to be grateful and extending an act of courtesy and gratitude. These one or two people are receiving that. They're changing now. Their view of other shifts. I'm no longer another. I'm like a member of the family now. I'm not just some random person. I'm like with them now. And then the people around who witness that, they change. And then I look up over to the right, there's a little manager booth. The manager knows me and he sees me coming and he gets a smile on his face because all of his employees talk about me and they're all hoping that I get in their line. And he's walked up to me several times and said, thank you. So his world changed, which means he's different when he goes home to his family and he's different with the team. So just me doing one tiny little thing, spending an extra 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 or 20 pounds, whatever it is, at the checkout, immaterial really to me, has a ripple effect on countless human beings and their family and their family. Like those ripples go out.
Absolutely.
So this is a simple thing that any of us can do. And I don't just hand them a candy bar. I ask them what they want. And I get them what they want. How many people have actually done that in their lives? We give presents away at Christmas. We don't necessarily ask people what they want. They're getting what they want. And then they're getting what they're actually getting is love. What I'm saying by that, I'm saying, I see you. I hear you. I love you.
Yeah.
I'm saying that to a stranger, quote unquote. But from that point on, they're not a stranger. And every time I come in that store, like the eyes perk up. Oh, there's that guy. There's that guy. Right? So in that moment, regardless of what kind of day they had, I'm reminding them of the best in themselves. And I'm reminding myself the best in me. Regardless of what kind of day I had before I walked into that, I change when I start walking, when I'm heading my way into quote unquote Aldi's or Trader Joe's, because I know literally as I'm driving there, what's going to happen. So I'm changing on my way there.
Yeah, that's
Right?
so awesome.
I know what's going to happen. So anyway, there you
Thank
go.
you
I'll
so
leave you
much.
with that.
Yeah, be that man, be that
Be
woman
that
who
man.
does that.
Be that
Yeah,
woman. Yeah, be that.
exactly. And then reach out to me and share what happened, and I'll make
Exactly.
sure to share that on the podcast, and I'll make sure
Absolutely.
to shoot you a message, Vince, to let you know how that went, because
Oh, I would love to hear. I would
yeah.
love to hear.
I mean,
I'd love to
because
hear.
like then because even asking someone in Germany in a grocery store how they are, that alone
That alone.
will be worth
And
it,
if you don't want to
worth the
ask them,
story.
I'll leave you with one last thing. If you don't want to ask them that, just ask them, what are you grateful for today? That way, if you don't have any extra money, you don't want to buy anything for anybody, just ask them, what are you grateful for? That alone will rock their world and yours. Okay.
Even in friendships, I think some people it's maybe been a while since they asked that question. So imagine asking that to someone who 99% of people don't even notice. They don't even notice the people working in a grocery store. Just walk past them. Maybe even ask them to remove themselves from the shelf that they want to get at or something. So that's huge.
Right.
It's huge.
Yeah. Yeah.
Vince,
All right. Well, thank you, brother.
I'm filled with love. Thank you so much for your time,
You're very welcome.
for your presence.
Thank you. Thank you, bro.
Deeply
Thank you.
appreciate you and your work, and
Me
I
too.
can't wait to bring this into the world and to,
Good.
then welcome you into my home.
Thank you so much, brother. Thank you so much. I'm very grateful. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. And with that,
You bet.
Vince Matoska Chafin. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right.
You're welcome.